All right, it is the midterm season. It is time for the Rivers Edge election coverage, back after a year off. Super excited to be here. And I'm going to open up with a question for all of you. Has Donald Trump done all of us a favor? Serious question. Think about just a few years ago. About 3 years ago. No one cared. No one came out to vote. No one was interested. No one gave a damn. This year, everyone cares. I don't care where you stand, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, Green Party, fascist, socialist, communist, whatever. Everyone cares this year. And you couldn't have said that just a couple years ago, just a few years ago. So has Donald Trump woken America up to the fact that we can actually vote? The fact that it exists? That's the question. Has Donald Trump done us a favor? I'm Brian Crawford. Welcome to the Rivers Edge, broadcasting from Mr. Small's Theater. We're here with the 2018 midterm election results. We're going to be the only show, I think, probably, to focus on some of the local races and local issues here in Pennsylvania, because you know all of the old hats are going to be talking about the U.S. Congress and the Senate, the House, all of that stuff. Is it going to flip? Is it not going to flip? This and that and all of that. We're going to be focusing on things happening here in Pittsburgh, everything from the governor's race to the ballot initiative to everything right here, and we have a great panel to handle that task. To my right, we have Courtney Francis, who's a psychopath.
Yes.
At least that's how she told me to refer to her before we launched. Now, she is a marketing specialist, an education specialist. Who are you, Courtney?
Who am I? Yes, that's the psychopath part was right. No. I am an education technology marketing specialist. I've worked in higher ed and technology for the past 10 years. Education is near and dear to my heart. I'm a big fan of equity, and I'm really nervous for this evening. So yeah.
Why are you nervous?
It's been a really anxiety-riddled day. I went to the polls, and things looked a little slapdash, as they do when you go to the polls, and then I'm just waiting for the results to come in.
That's one thing I will say about this town, is things are pretty on point. You go in, everybody's already set up, they know what they're doing, and I went early. I went at 8 a.m., which I know they've been open at that point, but it's still pretty early in the process. I think part of that has to do with the fact that we've had the same polling locations for years and years. So.
I didn't last year. This experience was much better than in 2016. My voting experience was terrible, but in the interim I've moved, so now my polling place seems a little more reliable.
Makes sense. And then across the table from you, we have Mr. Sam Leonard of Pittsburgh Local News, probably the only... one of the only other truly locally focused podcasts in Pittsburgh. You cover the news that is here in Pittsburgh, and you're here to cover the election as well.
Yeah, man, and I look up to Brian because, like he said, this probably is one of the only shows covering the local elections, the stuff that Listen, we all want to jump up and down about Donald Trump. I really don't care. I want to walk out my door, see what my neighbor and what the cashier at Shop and Save, what effect do they have on my life? A real one. So I love what you do, Brian. And I'm excited to see what goes on tonight.
Do you think Donald Trump has done us a favor in the sense that he has gotten people interested in voting again?
Yeah, man. I think
for good or bad,
I
people
think
are talking about it.
In the short term, it's a favor. I hope to belabor this point throughout the night, but I'm very anti-rock the vote. Go out and vote, everyone. I used to try and do a bit on stage. I could never make it funny. Everyone should vote? What? The worst problem we have is uninformed voters.
I
Kourtney
agree.
Kardashian, Kylie Jenner's emailing me, P. Diddy, go vote. I don't want Kylie's input on geopolitical game theory, But Donald Trump isn't just saying vote. He's getting people pissed off or excited enough to investigate the issues. Now, will the issue still be that it's idiots investigating the issues? Maybe so. But at least in the short term, I would have to say, yeah, it hurts to say he's done us a favor, but yeah, I think he has.
I think he has. Courtney, you
my nostrils are flaring. So I don't think he's encouraging anyone to investigate anything. I mean, I think he's encouraging people to participate. without investigating, which is a very different thing, which is diabolical and successful in a lot of ways that we've seen. As far as doing us a favor,
It sounds like you are anti-rock the vote like I am then.
oh, yeah. I mean, I think if you're going to vote, you should be informed. You should feel proud of what you're voting for. You should be able to stand behind it and not eeny, meeny, miny, moe this stuff.
I think if you're going to vote, you should agree with me, is how I feel.
Oh, well.
Well, the way I've always felt is that I am against the idea that anybody is restricted from voting, and I'm
Right.
opposed to putting any restrictions in place, but I agree with you, Sam, that you should not just encourage someone to vote just for the sake of voting. If you
Sure.
don't even have 30 seconds to pick up the phone and Google the name of the candidate, you have
Yeah.
no business being
Sure.
in the voting booth.
Yeah.
None
And
whatsoever.
I think in that, for me, it goes across the aisle. It doesn't matter if I agree with you or not, if you can have a conversation and know what you're talking about.
Our third panelist today is Mr. Sean Logue, the only survivor from the 2016 panel, the only returner here. Political attorney and all-around great mind when it comes to local politics here in the Pittsburgh area. And somebody who really knows what he's talking about when it comes to local politics, because he's a political attorney within the local political GOP branches. So he's worked with local candidates who are running here in the southwestern Pennsylvania, so he definitely knows what he's talking about.
I was Rick Saccone's attorney 4 different times.
There you go.
We'll see. What does that buy me, right?
Probably buy you a lot, I bet.
Not anymore, but that's another story. But no, has Trump done us a favor? Answer is absolutely yes. I love football. I think football is the greatest sport to watch on TV. I have season tickets to Pitt football. I watch the Steelers. But you know what? I don't want to watch the NFL Network. I don't care about fantasy football. I don't care who gets traded or anything else. Mm-hmm. What Trump has done, Trump has gotten Joe Sixpack off the couch and into politics. Trump has galvanized people who weren't involved in politics before. It's my belief that this country was robbed of an industrial base when NAFTA happened. And people didn't rise up, and they should have, against our elites of both parties. Bill Clinton signed NAFTA. The Republican Congress got NAFTA through. Average people should have risen up then, and they didn't. They didn't because they didn't have a leader to funnel their anger and anxiety into a positive movement. Trump has gotten everybody off the couch. I am thankful that we have the robust political process that we have now. And he's changing the entire culture of the country to really care about politics and care about if you are a socialist, fine, go out and vote, give us your opinion, tell us why do you like socialism, all that other stuff. He has built a new arena, and today I'm told that the numbers of people voting were through the roof, just like they were in 2016, and that means that these turnout models don't work. So everything's up for grabs tonight. And I'm very excited to see what happens.
Well, and also off the charts, you're right, comparable to 2016. But what's really unprecedented about that is the fact that it is a midterm election. It's not a presidential election. So those kind of numbers for a midterm are unprecedented in the modern political era. You haven't seen people vote in these kinds of numbers, and really in a midterm for as long as I've been alive. So definitely it's a big deal. Now, I will say when it comes to NAFTA, though, the new agreement, the U.S., Canada, and Mexico agreement, I don't necessarily think that I think there's some serious issues with that, especially when it comes to prescription drugs. I talked with Connor Lamb about that on my show Sunday. For now, these drug companies can keep their patents longer, keep the prices sky high, and really make medicine unaffordable for people in lower incomes. So I don't know that it's 100% a great thing. I think there's still some huge issues with the new agreement. What do you think about that?
I don't know anything about the prescription drugs. The big thing that I followed is that Canada had outrageous tariffs on all kinds of our products, and they basically said, we get free trade coming into the United States, but you don't get free trade coming into Canada. And Trump said, no, you're not going to abuse us anymore. If you don't like the deal that we propose, that's fine. I'm going to slap a tax on every single car that comes in, and then we'll see what happens. And Canada folded. So dairy farmers in the United States and Wisconsin can now compete. Before they were paying 200% import tariffs for all dairy products. Now it's now a level playing field. And if the American worker has a level playing field, we can compete with anybody.
Well, we'll dominate in Canada, and the economics just bear that out when you look at. Basically, those tariffs are put in place to allow the Canadian farmer to compete.
Yeah.
So with America with all of our resources. Sam, you disagree?
No, I don't disagree. I just want to come back to the idea of patents, and these drug companies can keep their patents longer. No one abuses capitalism maybe more than the American pharmaceutical industry. But like Sean said, we kind of have lost our industrial base. We'll talk about this more throughout the night. Mm-hmm. Aren't patents kind of like the only thing we have left? They're a little bit plastic. I think they can be ignored kind of by places like China. But, I mean, what else do we have? We aren't building anything. All we have is intellectual property. So without those patents, I'm not saying that Merck and Mylan should get $500 billion this year. But so what else do we have?
If we get a cure for cancer, someone who's poor doesn't deserve the same opportunity to fight that disease as someone who's wealthy because they're bringing the price up 400% because they know that they have a short window to make that money.
No, tremendous point. But it's not just about Merck. That's the worst. Right. That's the best counterpoint to my argument. What about the fact that we don't do anything else, and so the person?
But this is specifically talking about the pharmaceutical industry. It's not talking about other patents. It's laser focused on pharmaceuticals.
Oh, is that so?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well.
I don't have all the answers, okay, but it's my opinion that the vast majority of great accomplishments over the last, 100, 200 years have been because of capitalism. And if a drug company invests $1 billion to create the cure for cancer, they should be able to make a profit on it. It's just how things work. Because if you take that profit motive away, kiss your cure for cancer goodbye. It's just not going to be invented. So we have to protect intellectual property. I don't know about the prescription drug issue. Forgive me.
Can you educate us at all, Brian?
Yeah. So right now, whenever you come out with a prescription drug, you do have a patent for so many years where you could make that profit, and that is to create that financial incentive that you're talking about, Sean. But that expires at a certain point.
Right. 30 years is that around?
It's not that long.
But Viagra just expired 10 years ago,
20,
right?
So 20 or 25, I think.
What this new trade agreement dictates is that time frame has now been extended even longer. So generics will be even slower to reach the market, which means that they can keep these prices up artificially.
Right.
I
agree with the motivator of profit in innovation, but man, it sucks to tell poor people they have to die of cancer. I mean, that doesn't factor in. I don't know how to make that into a capitalist model, right? That if you are, disadvantaged, that you have access to the same medical care. To me, that seems like something that at least we should attempt to find a solution that isn't just shooting ourselves in the foot,
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't think there was a problem with the old method, I guess, is my issue, and I don't necessarily agree with extending that. But I do want to say, if you want to join the program, you can certainly text us at 412-4072-PGH. You can tweet me at RiverTalkPGH, or you can message us in the Facebook Live chat. We would love to hear your feedback on all of these conversations and more. I want to talk a little bit about the political climate that has existed since 2016. And as much as Donald Trump may have done us a favor in getting people interested in voting, I feel like he's done, and this is my opinion, a great disservice by lowering the bar of what is common courtesy in this country, and people just feel embrazened to flat out insult people, and I feel like the Republican Party has kind of tried to mirror what Trump has done with other candidates, and I look specifically at Scott Wagner, and I was a bit embarrassed. I was listening to the BBC World Service overnight, and Pennsylvania came up as one of the top news stories for the BBC World Service because we had a governor's candidate threatened to physically assault his rival by stomping on his face with golf cleats.
Yeah.
And I thought, how embarrassing that we've come to this point. And I feel like the public discourse has just gone into the toilet since 2016. And then people from all sides. And I Trump I felt like has started this bandwagon of just this gutter talk and just lowering the bar. But let's not pretend that the Democrats haven't played ball as well, where you have Eric Holder going out and saying, telling people to kick the opponents, and Dianne Feinstein going out and telling people to...
Kicking is the Democrats' version of stomping on your face with a golf cleat.
Yeah, and you've got Dianne Feinstein encouraging people to go in and interrupt people's private time. out with their families at restaurants and things like that. But I feel like really we're just at a point where, since I've been alive, I don't know that it's been worse. To say, people say that, oh, it's the worst it's ever been. Well, that's bullshit. Let's be honest. There's been times in history where we've had congressmen caning people and assaulting people on the House floor. So let's not pretend like it's worse than it's ever been. But I feel like it's worse than it's ever been in a long time. And I'm a little disappointed with the direction we're going and the fact that it isn't slowing down. And I feel like the Republicans have made a mistake in thinking that because Trump won, that's the type of candidate that everybody wants. I feel like people didn't like Hillary Clinton. She was an awful candidate. And Trump did show that he knew how to game the system, and people liked that. You look at when he was on stage and he pulled out Lindsey Graham's phone number and read it to the entire crowd. He proved some points with things like that.
Sure.
So I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on that. And the governor's race, I think Wolf is going to win in a landslide. I know you, Sean, may not agree with me. You were saying that you think he'll win, but it might not be as big of a victory as I'm thinking.
So you know where my bias is. I have donated a lot of money to Scott Wagner. I think Scott Wagner is a great guy. He's a great businessman. He has done more for this Commonwealth than 99.9% of other people have. He single-handedly flipped 4 to 5 PA senatorial seats, got them from Democrat to Republican. By doing that,
and I do want to add, he won his race through a write-in campaign. Which is very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He also has an easy name to spell.
Very easy. That helps. That helps. By flipping the Senate, he kept Governor Wolf, from raising taxes, from doing other things such as maybe getting through an extraction tax for natural gas, which would have taken wealth from Western Pennsylvania and sent it to Philadelphia. Wagner has done so much. Is he facing an uphill battle? Absolutely. Wolf has a great name ID. He's an incumbent. He's got lots and lots of money. He is facing an uphill battle. I don't think it's going to be a landslide. I don't trust the polls. I think that the polls have not...
Because the polls have him up by like double digits.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I don't believe that the polls have figured out this new turnout model. I think that, truthfully, the parties are kind of in flux right now. You know, in the past, you used to think that the rich guy or the rich woman, that he or she would be a Republican. That's not true anymore. Your richest voters are now liberal Democrats.
What?
That's true.
Really?
So your highest income areas are now voting Democrat. In fact,
okay, not individual voters.
Well, demographically, your highest income voters, like the people who are making $250,000 or more,
sure,
they're now progressives. That's like the voting trend now. And you're poor, not poor, but you're
tech, even Wall Street, strangely.
Yeah, your middle income white person is not voting Democrat anymore. They're now voting Republican, and so there's been a shift, and the shift is still going on. We haven't figured out all these things yet. My point is the models haven't gotten it right yet, and because they haven't gotten it right, I don't trust the model that predicts that there's going to be a landslide. Now, that being said, I have been following polls, and Wagner, in order for him to win, would have to be up huge here in Western PA. And I don't think those numbers are as high as they need to be. So it's going to be an uphill battle. I have a lot of faith in Scott, but will it be an uphill battle? Yes. Okay, but it's not going to be a landslide the way they're saying.
And let's just talk about business real quick, because I do want to break a myth right here: the myth that Republicans are big business and Democrats are not. They're both big business.
Right.
Both big business, huge business. The Democrats just have different big businesses. Bill Peduto hasn't met a major mega corporation that he hasn't liked yet, as long as they're paying the bills.
Sure.
So they both have their companies. I do think that there are people probably on both sides. On the Republican side, more the libertarian angle, and in the Democrat side, more the progressive angle, where you do have different factions in each party that are more about the small business and the individuals, but both parties have their big business friends, and they both utilize those to the best of their ability.
Can I make a few points? Like
Absolutely.
Peduto's massive corporations that he meets with, they seem to at least have they at least appear to be creating jobs, raising say Google's coming. It's kind of one of the easiest example. Uber is another great one. Who, they're on the outs now, right? But they seem to be doing good things for the city rather than sometimes the Republicans. Actually, no, let me not make it a party thing. Sometimes other politicians other than Bill Peduto will work with big businesses in exchange for direct campaign donations. So there's a little bit of a difference there, right?
What about UPMC? They don't have any employees.
They're the biggest, one of the biggest problems our city faces right now.
And Bill Peduto, the day one in office, he dropped a lawsuit to try to get them to pay taxes.
Yeah, I forget what the justification was. Do you remember?
Yeah, because he said that they're not going to give as much money in donations. So let's not have the guarantee. Yeah, let's not have the guarantee of tax money. Let's take it on their good faith that they're just going to give us money.
Yeah. Terrible call. But some mountains do. Listen, I like Bill. I ain't his biggest supporter. That's for sure. I also just wanted to talk real quick about the golf cleats video.
Yes.
All these things you have to take it with a grain of salt. So let's start with the fact that it wasn't truly a direct physical threat against Governor Wolf. And,
it doesn't take much, though.
No, it doesn't take much, and it's again, not great. It's not wise political work, and that's the next point. That's how I know it wasn't a legitimate threat, because watch that video. It is one of the most I post Instagram stories that I re-record more times than he recorded that. It's a 4-minute video. He's going, and then now stomp on him with golf cleats. And he's stumbling over his words. You could tell it was one take. Like, they did it, and he's like, all right, let's go. Done. That wasn't part of the speech, maybe that was a bullet point, but he didn't, review that, So that's both, I'm saying he didn't plan on stomping his face in. That was an embarrassing video that he put out. Though I was a little bit, I was like, oh, man, I feel for this guy. When he's holding all the paychecks, he had something like 400 paychecks that he was giving to his employees on payday. And I'm like, shit, he's a legitimate job creator. You got to give a guy credit for that. That's a good thing, right?
It is, yeah.
I want someone to respond to that. But also, Donald Trump, listen, he's the guy who took it to the next level. He's the guy who put being an asshole on his back. He put the team on his back and carried him into the end zone. But I think he's really more of a symptom. I hate to this is just an easy answer.
I agree 100%.
It's social media. It's the internet. It's the way we all interact with each other. So he's not free of blame because he is the guy who's done it the worst. But someone was going to crack this code and come along and be a prick and benefit from it.
Well, I've said for a while, and I agree with you completely when it comes to Donald Trump. Everyone says that, he's a bigot, he's this and that. And I look at him and I'm like, his son-in-law, who's one of his closest advisors, is Jewish. His daughter, who is, let's be honest, that's his favorite kid.
Yeah.
You can just tell.
Mine too.
Tiffany?
No. Who's that?
Ivanka. That's his other daughter. It's always missing. But, yeah, he has another daughter, but you never see her. She's always. Yeah. So no, Ivanka. She converted to Judaism, but I feel like he is okay with allowing some dark things to exist and dark feelings to go into the atmosphere if he feels it'll serve his purpose and guarantee his power and his success. And I feel like he's willing to not say anything.
I want to hear Courtney and Sean both respond to, is Donald Trump to blame for being an asshole?
Well, first I want to say, to your point and the idea that Donald Trump is a symptom, I'm going to answer explicitly the original question of, is he doing us a favor? I absolutely believe that there's a lot of friction and pain and growing pains and struggle when it comes to change. So obviously he was a catalyst for pushing us in a direction that forced everyone to get a very public colonoscopy and answer the questions of what we're made of, what we represent, what we are as a country, what we are as people, all of that. I don't necessarily think that Donald Trump was the only way to make that progress. And that's the part where I don't think that part of it is a favor. There are many people suffering right now, and that is the thing that has not been mentioned at all, where his policies and this progress that we're getting is very painful, mostly for the marginalized people who we should be defending rather than throwing under the bus. And I think innovation can have a lot of different catalysts.
Can I ask you? And I don't get this argument about Trump's causing pain or his policies hurt people. This economy is absolutely on fire. We're the lowest unemployment.
Okay, I wasn't
Well,
done.
let's argue economy in
though.
a minute, though.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to.
It's truly a dog shit economy. Like you said, we've been robbed of an industrial base. We have massive trade deficits. The stock market is supposed to be an indicator of a good economy. It ain't the same thing.
I don't.
This is a bubble. I mean, we're gonna crumble. Okay, mark my words. I don't know what the timeline is. This economy we can't. It's fucked. Bad. We don't do anything here. We don't do anything. Instagram is going to be half of our GDP in 20 years.
We do great online radio. What are you talking about?
No, but for real. No, Brian, you make a good point. We do great art. You need art. I'm telling you, 20 years, Instagram is going to be 5% of our GDP. Okay, that's the bad sign. It's all show. Nothing being built.
So I hate being partisan, okay, but
Go ahead.
It's my opinion.
And real quick, before we say that, Jeff Betten is going to be up next. He is, where's he at? There he is. He's waiting there. We're going to bring him in just a minute, right after Sean's point, but I just wanted to let everyone know we're going to take a quick break. Then we've got Jeff Betten here on the River's Edge.
The Obama economy. Obama doubled the national debt, and we had low growth. We're talking like sub 2%. The jobs that he created were all very weak jobs with low income, service sector jobs. This Trump economy is different. This is a different animal. He's bringing He's bringing the industrial base back. We're starting to make things again. I agree with you that the stock market is artificially inflated because the Federal Reserve were printing money out of thin air and loaning it to the Wall Street banks at 0% interest, who then took that money and dumped into the markets and flooded the markets. And they did that because if they didn't do it, the whole thing might have gone under. I agree with you 100% there. What I'm saying is that I think Trump is trying to reverse that, and the economy is growing again. Wages are now up the highest rate the highest growth rate they've been since the 1980s. Black unemployment rate, all-time low. Female unemployment rate, all-time low. Hispanic unemployment rate, all-time low. Like, this economy is different, and I agree with you that we need brick and mortars jobs. Obama didn't care about those things. Obama blocked the Keystone Pipeline. Obama blocked drilling off the coast. Trump opened all of that up. Trump wants to drill. Obama wanted to put out coal in West Virginia. Trump now has lifted those restrictions. So
don't you worry about the environmental impact of these coal plants? I mean, we're at a point now, it's just been reported through the BBC that the temperature of the oceans is much higher than previously predicted by human beings, which means that the work that we're actually currently doing to try to ward off the impacts of global warming is basically fruitless. We have to actually double our efforts now because our numbers were actually incorrect.
I think global warming is a myth. Okay, I'm sorry.
You're entitled to that.
The coal industry didn't create like the medieval ice age. The coal industry didn't create like the medieval warming period. Dinosaurs didn't get wiped out by the coal industry. The glaciers that formed Lake Erie weren't caused by the coal industry. In the 1970s, environmentalists were saying, "Oh, we're going to have a new ice age." Now it's global. Then it was global warming. Now it's climate change. Well, the climate's always changing. And as far as coal goes, if you do clean coal abstraction techniques and burning, the only thing that gets burned off is CO2. CO2 is not a pollutant. CO2 is eaten up by plants. Okay, coal is clean, and what I think that there are people who are using the global warming scare in order to create their own false economy. Warren Buffett doesn't want you to burn some things because he owns all the railroads. It's just how things are. At the end of the day, they were telling us that global warming, but we're going to be past the point of no return. Go back and watch An Inconvenient Truth. Al Gore told us by now we're past the tipping point and the world was going to go to hell. And guess what? Nothing's happened.
I'll end with this point before we take a quick break. Bring Jeff Betten in, who's running for Pittsburgh City Council. He's going to be running against Darlene Harris on the north side. So we're going to get his perspective on how this election is going on the local race. I want to, real quick, I do want to bring up the updates on the national level. So right now, according to CNN, the Democrats are projected to win 44 seats so far in the House compared to 46 for Republicans. So Republicans are actually ahead in the House race at this point, which is the spot where they were supposed to win. And then in the Senate, it's now 31 Democrats to 42 Republicans. The polls just closed at 8 p.m. in Pennsylvania, so we're still going to be waiting on some results for that, but we'll let you know as those results come in. When it comes to climate change, I'll just leave with you with this point before we take a quick break. According to The Guardian, humans, just 0.01% of all life have destroyed 83% of wild mammals on the Earth. So I'll leave you with that. We've got Jeff Betten up next. This is the special election night coverage, the only place that's going to be covering local politics. We're going to be talking about the Democratic Socialists coming up. We're going to be talking about a text message I received, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the ballot referendum as well. All of that and more here on the River's Edge.
Are you hungry for science? I'm Carissa Sedor.
And I'm Ralph Crew.
And we host the Carnegie Science Center's podcast, Science News and Cues.
Also known as Snack.
Join us twice a month as we talk about exciting science news, answer science questions submitted by listeners, that's you, and dive deep into a cool topic every episode.
Curious about exoplanets, glowing animals, or even your own poop? Well, do we have the show for you?
We also feature special guests from octopuses to famous YouTube science stars to NASA scientists.
Join us on Snack, and remember,
Stay
hungry for science.
Breaking news here on the River's Edge. 0.14% of the vote is in Pennsylvania. And Bob Casey and Bob Casey, he is up 71.92% with 0.14% of the vote in against 26.40% for Lou Barletta and 0.42% for Neil Taylor and 1.26% for Dale Kearns. So I don't know, those third parties, they might be coming in. We'll see. They got some numbers on the board. It's interesting. Oh, in the governor's race, Tom Wolf up by 73.40% with a huge 0.14% reporting compared to 25.22% for Scott Wagner. I'm Brian Crawford. This is the River's Edge Radio Network here with live election coverage. Got Courtney, Sam, and Sean in studio with me as well, and we're happy to welcome our friend Jeff Betten, who is here in studio. He's going to be running against Darlene Harris for Pittsburgh City Council. And we're here to talk about what you have seen and what you've observed, talking to people here on the local level. Jeff, welcome to the River's Edge.
Thank you for having me. Obviously, it's going to be a big night for Democrats. We're very happy with what we're seeing.
With that 0.14% in. I mean, you got to be feeling confident, right?
We're feeling very confident with that number, with the way things are heading right now. With that ratio this early on, it's not even going to be close, Brian. But we're also looking at a lot of down ballot races. My campaign, we were sending a lot of resources. Unfortunately, to the opponent of your guest coming on later, we were sending them to the Lindsey Williams campaign, who's running against Jeremy Schaefer. Sorry, Jeremy. We were also...
And I will say, to be fair, I did reach out to somebody who's connected to her campaign and offered her to come on as well. So.
Fair and balanced. Yes. Fair and balanced. Also, Emily Skopoff, I believe is how you pronounce her last name, who's running against Mike Turzai, a little up north.
How is that election, how's that race going? How do you feel? Have you spoken to anybody? What's the word with that race? Because I'd really like to see Turzai out. The fact that he's threatening my water supply here in Pittsburgh, despite having zero constituents that live here, by the way.
You and I have discussed this. We're on the same issue, on the same side of that issue. It's gonna all be about voter turnout. It's the first competitive race he's had in years, I can tell you that much. And his team was definitely. It was even, up until today, the polls were a little too close for comfort for them. I can tell you that's, without going too far out on a limb, I can tell you that Emily's campaign was definitely making them sweat.
Now, Jeff, you have been, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been endorsed by the Democratic Socialists in Pittsburgh, correct?
That process is going to take some time. It's actually not even open yet. I'm seeking the nomination.
You're seeking the nomination.
Or the endorsement.
Okay. So do you feel confident in your campaign coming forward based on what you've seen here on the local level with a lot of these candidates running for state representative and state senate that are associated with that organization doing so well?
Well, I'm not going to say that I'm confident because this is my first time running for an office. I don't know what I should or shouldn't expect. I will say that I've gotten a lot of individual and private love and support from members. So I've been encouraged to kind of continue down the path that we're going on. And that's all we can say at the moment. With every campaign, you can just, do the best you can and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, so I'm really this election's very interesting. I love the fact I love these elections where it's really like local when you're voting for your guy, whether it's Senate or House. Presidential elections, I don't know, it just seems so distant. Mm-hmm. So how are you feeling? How do you feel this race is going? Now, Sean, maybe the two of you will disagree. And if anybody has a question for Jeff, please feel free to chime in.
What are the call-in lines again, Brian?
So we have a texting line. It's 412-4072-PGH. You can also message us on the Facebook Live page as well, which you can just search at Rivers Edge PGH on Facebook. And then also you can tweet me at River Talk PGH.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you if I can jump in. Sure. So I'm a civilian, I guess. I am not a city of Pittsburgh resident. Okay.
I was going to ask your neighbor. Are you District 1?
No. So I grew up in Mount Lebanon, and I love the city of Pittsburgh. And I years ago I thought that the city and the county should have merged, because I thought that was best for our regional economy. But that issue's long gone. It's in the past now. I care deeply about the city because I work there every day. Most of my entertainment is in the city. I follow city politics a little bit. I thought that Kevin Acklin did a very good job as Mayor Peduto's chief of staff, and I think that without him, there would have been a lot of problems with the city as far as relations with business.
He's doing a great job selling us out the People's Water, that's for sure.
Well, that's my big that's my big question. So Acklin's no longer with People's Water. He's now with the Penguins.
No, he left the city to make more money in the private sector. Got hired as the top attorney for Peoples, then came back and is working with the mayor for a public-private partnership.
Well,
keep getting them checks, Kevin.
Well, that's so all.
He's certainly making his money.
All that might be true. I'm not disputing that. He's with the Penguins now, by the way. He's no longer with People's Gas.
Oh, okay.
I think all that might be true. But here's my question to you. Sure. And Pittsburgh's water supply is poisoned. Okay.
Sure.
I mean, it's at like Flint, Michigan levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Worse, actually.
Worse, okay. Nobody seems to have an answer. Like, nobody. Like, at all. I haven't heard anybody, propose, a real legitimate answer except for People's Gas.
Well, I would disagree, actually, completely.
Okay.
PWSA has actually been coming through and replacing the lead lines. The part of the problem has to do with the mayor's office and the county. The mayor's office did not want to replace private lines going into people's houses, but the problem with that is it was actually the PWSA, under private management, they changed the chemicals to treat the water, but laid off all of the people that test the water, the vast majority of them. So as they changed the chemicals, they were not able to keep up with the tests to make sure that the chemicals were doing the right job, and that created the lead crisis that we have here in Pittsburgh. But before that happened, we didn't have an issue. And then, when the issue was created by the city, the mayor's response was that we're just going to replace the public lines, not the private lines.
But how many years has this been going on? I mean, it's been going on for years, and there's no answers. It's like, come on. So my question to you...
But it gets worse, though, if I can add real quick.
Okay.
It gets even worse. Then the
Brian
city...
and I are on the same side of this.
Yes,
argument,
the city and the county conspired to have the Allegheny County Health Department make a statement that there's zero evidence that lead in the water has any effect on children, despite the U.S. Department of Health and the State Department of Health saying that it absolutely has an effect on children. So they've literally used the county health department as a pawn in their game to save money because they don't want to step up to the plate and do what's right for their citizens.
I think we can all agree that lead in the water is bad.
Yeah, except for the Allegheny County Health Department and apparently Bill Peduto. Well, now let me rephrase that. I'm sorry. He ran as the clean water candidate.
I know he was. I know. But my question to you is that this thing has been going on for years and there's nothing that's been done, no solutions, anything. Why not just let People's Gas do their thing and fix the problem? They're telling you they have a comprehensive plan. They'll get it done. Why not just let them do it?
Well, and Brian, I'm not sure if you touched on this with your point either, but there was, if I have my history right, I believe a lot of this problems that we're under was because a couple of years back there was one of those quote-unquote private-public partnerships.
Well, what they did is they hired a private company to manage the PWSA, and the
Yes.
problems
It
occurred
was the same
under.
company from Flint, right?
I'm not
There's a
sure. It might be,
relationship there.
yeah.
It's scary.
But I
Yeah.
will say that private company, because it was a private industry, the
Yes.
bottom dollar is what matters. They
Right.
were trying to cut costs.
Yes.
They laid off the people that test the water, and that's what created the problem that
And
we
as
have
soon
now.
as
Yes.
Peduto realized what was going on, he canned the private company, but obviously the
Well,
damage
he
is
can't
done.
can the private company, actually. The PWSA canned the private company because it's a separate authority.
Does he appoint?
Yeah.
Does he appoint though? I don't know. Does he
Yeah,
appoint
so
members
he
of the
with
authority?
council will appoint members to the authority, but
Right.
they act as an independent agency.
Right. Okay.
So there's somewhat of a connection, but the mayor can't come down and
Then
make an
yeah.
edict that this is what you're going to do.
Sure,
he can't
the
go in and-
city fired the company, but it was
Well, the
already
PWSA
Flint-
did because they are separate from the city. It's weird. There's a
Okay.
relationship, but it's not. They're not the same. So the city will appoint the board members for the PWSA, but then those
Yes.
board members
Okay.
act independently
Right.
of the city. So as a board member steps down or quits, the city then appoints a new board member, but they're not held to a public. They're not held to oversight from the city.
My point is just that relationship was pretty short-lived because at that point all the stuff
Yeah.
was coming out about Flint, and then everyone was like looking at their own water, kind of.
Well, and my larger point was that actually to say why don't we give them a chance is to be like, well, I would argue that they've already had their chance, and at least
Peoples,
Talking about
Well,
peoples.
or you mean private?
I just
companies in
private
general?
enterprises in general. I'm not sure if it's specifically people's, but,
No, they weren't involved.
but also
with that, yeah.
but it's just to a larger point of private versus public, and to a larger point, it's like, and you might disagree with me, but I personally, I'd rather put my faith in the quality of my water into a governing body that's accountable, at least indirectly, from the people and solely is put in charge of making sure we have safe, clean drinking water, as opposed to somebody who, well, if the lead goes up a little bit, but we make more money this quarter, then it's fine. I don't trust those guys as much as I trust,
So go ahead.
But my question is, so that's fine. We can disagree with
Exactly,
that.
exactly.
Okay, and I respect that. But my question is does anybody else have a plan? Does anybody else have a clue on how to fix this? And I haven't heard from anybody like a comprehensive plan to fix the problem.
Well, the PWSA is now. That's what I mean. They're going through and replacing the lead lines. They're
How ma-
actually right here in Millville. It is a mess everywhere you drive because they're ripping up the roads and replacing the lines. They're testing.
But will that solve the problem? Because there's other lead. There's so much
Right.
lead.
There's
it's
a
unreal.
lot of lead between the street and the houses.
Well, they're fixing
too.
those lines too.
Are they
now.
going on
so
private property?
there was a fight, and there was a big fight
Yeah.
between Bill Peduto and County Controller Chelsea Wagner, and apparently Peduto has backed down because the city created this problem, and now they are replacing those private lines as well, which they should have done. He tried to come up with an excuse not to, but Philadelphia was actually replacing those private lines, so he really didn't have a leg to stand on. It was just an attempt to try to save money. To Jeff's point, I don't trust the PWSA or the government either, but I know that if they're connected to the government, we can throw them out eventually. Whereas if you get a private company in there, it's run through shareholders. And I look to Nestle as an
Exactly,
example as to
yes.
why not,
Yes.
where the CEO or either CEO or chairman of Nestle came out with a statement that he believes that water is not a human right. So
Well,
right
I'm
now,
not
maybe.
a fan of Nestle.
But my point is maybe people's have all of the best intentions right now, but those things can change. You can
Say what you
change-
will about Rich Fitzgerald, I'd rather let him control my water than Nestle.
Well, we can vote him out of office.
I like
and that's
Mad
my,
Max,
that's
but-
my
Right.
point. Whereas Nestle, the only one that can vote them out of office are shareholders. So, or not Nestle, but PWSA. But what if they get a CEO who's malicious and they're, we can charge premium prices for water to your house. I just feel like you're opening the door to some really frightening things.
Go ahead.
And I feel like we're not answering the original question you asked too. I do want to add real quick too, because this was what I feel is an underlooked aspect of the 2017 mayoral election, that Dr. John Welsh, who was running against Mayor Peduto for his re-election, and also incidentally against my opponent for city council, Darlene Harris, Dr. Welsh wanted to institute point of entry filters in every single home in the city, which I thought was a fantastic option. It's part of my platform because I haven't seen any other candidates come out for something to ensure that while we're digging up city lines, we still have lead in our water. So I think that's a fantastic solution.
Is
And
it cost effective?
It's absolutely. Point of entry is basically like those little Brita filters. It's not the. It's not the pitcher of water that you'd have in a. They've tried to give those away, but the ones that you just screw onto your faucet, they're really cheap. They're really easy to install. But it's one of those good government things that I don't understand why we haven't.
Sure.
But isn't that just like a Band-Aid?
It absolutely is a Band-Aid. Digging up the lines is going to be the only long-term solution to this. It's just, in my opinion, it's disappointing that we haven't even attempted that when we have families who still have unacceptable amounts of lead in their drinking water.
I'm not even hearing any kind of debate anymore. I mean, this story is like off the front page. I mean, if I was living in the city, this would be like my number one issue. I'd be talking about this all the time. Why don't we fix the lead?
Don't even get me started with that. I'll sound like Trump now. I blame the media because I feel like the media, in many ways, are in Peduto's pocket.
Yeah.
You look at a lot of these conversations. The only media source that's an actual journalistic entity, because I call out Bill Peduto, but I'm not a journalist. I'm a talker. The only true journalist entity that really holds Bill Peduto and his administration to the fire is Public Source.
Of course, the greatest investigative reporting in the city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they're fantastic. And when it came to Hayes Woods, I always look back to Hayes Woods. Everybody was there. All the cameras were there, the reporters, everything. When Bill Peduto announced that Hayes Woods the city bought the land, which I agreed with, and that it was going to be one of the largest city parks in the country. And then a few months later, after he got in all the papers, after he was on all the TV shows, after he was on all the radio shows, the city sold a big portion of it off to private realtors, and it's not even going to be the largest park in Pittsburgh. And the only one to call him out on his flip-flopping was Public Source, the only news entity in Pittsburgh to do it. Everybody else, mum's the word. Nobody wants to say a bad thing about this guy. I don't know why. I don't think he's evil or anything. I just think he's not held accountable, and it's easy to get away with shit when you're not.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Brian Conway at Public Source who broke this.
Wow, is he there now?
Yeah.
Oh, he was at Next Pittsburgh, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he was the one who broke the story about the lead, and he was the subject of a smear campaign from a lot of private organizations as a result. And showed a lot of courage. So
there's a guy. His name's Mark Perlin. Sean, does that name ring a bell? You're in political law. He testifies as an expert witness in a lot of criminal law cases. He's I forget what he is. He's an expert on DNA, right? Forensics. He's been doing this for years, testifying as an expert witness. He also has a SoundCloud account where he makes his own music. And if you listen to Pittsburgh Local News Podcast, we often feature his song Pittsburgh Water. I just want to point listeners, it's the catchiest song you will ever hear.
Is he looking
just
for a label?
can't drink that Pittsburgh water. But he does it 10 times better. It's also hilarious. He's kind of like a nerdy guy. I say that with respect. So go check that out, and that's really the solution to all the problems. And here and in Flint is listening to this forensic scientist's SoundCloud account.
Can anyone here do some good sound effects? We need a breaking news sound effect. Who can do that?
Breaking news.
Glass breaking.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. So breaking news with 2% of the vote in. 2% of the vote in. Lou Barletta, he's starting to make a comeback. He's now at 32.58% compared to Bob Casey's 65.69%. And then your boy Scott Wagner, Sean, he's up to 30.92% with 43,000 votes to Tom Wolf's 67.54% at 94,000 votes. So
he's making a comeback.
He's making a comeback. He's narrowing that gap. So there's a few races that I'm going to be interested in. I'm going to be looking at throughout the evening. One is Josh Nolf's race, a real young kid. He's only 19 or 20 years old. Who's running for state representative. I'm really interested to see. He posted a picture on Facebook of his shoes, which are just destroyed from hitting so many doors. He's got the energy to make it happen. So we're going to be taking a look at that race. Obviously, our local races here with Lindsey William versus Jeremy Schaefer, and also Sarah Inamorado, and we're going to be talking about the write-in campaign for Dom Costa here in a little bit as well. Yeah, lots of interesting, good stuff. So, Jeff, as as somebody who's going to be running for city council, do you have any thoughts on the city and just the political climate that we're in that you want to share with people And you're welcome to stick around through the next several segments if you would like. But we're going to continue to move along the schedule, but I just wanted to check before we do so.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of breaking news, I am very relieved. I'm not sure about the rest of you guys, but I'm very relieved that if New York Times is to be believed, that Pittsburgh will not be the home of Amazon HQ2.
Oh, good. I've heard rumors for a long time. Thank God. Is it going to Washington, D.C.?
It's looking
Crystal City.
It's looking like, Crystal City, Virginia, which is a suburb of D.C., and also a neighborhood in Queens, New York. So
Okay, so as a homeowner, I was like, there are some benefits to me for Amazon coming here. Okay,
I was too.
so how about I'm moving to DC soon as a renter, truly a stone's throw from Crystal City. So rather than my property value doubling, my rent will increase. I will likely in 5 years be paying maybe $3,000 for a room much smaller than this one.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
All right, I don't understand this. Okay, I think it's absolutely insane that people are not happy that Amazon HQ didn't come here.
I'm extremely happy.
I don't understand.
Very happy.
Okay, here's why. Because I wouldn't be able to afford to live in the city. You look at what happened in Seattle. The cost of living has gone up so much that they have a huge
73%.
they have a huge homeless population now. And Amazon is so powerful. The government tried to tax them because they created the problem. They tried to tax them to help remedy the problem. Amazon beat the tax. They're bigger than the government, and I don't want a private company coming in and owning this town.
Well, it's not owning. So
It's like Nestle with the water.
Well, the Nestle with the water, that's a whole other story, and they're literally stealing water from the Great Lakes. I
do want Amazon to have a presence here. I just don't want them to completely run this town. I don't want another UPMC.
But again, what's I don't understand if they're going to drive property values up, if they're going to create high income jobs, if they're going to be paying tons and tons of taxes locally.
Yeah.
No, they're not going to pay any taxes. That's the thing.
Right.
That's why the deal that's so secret, and that's why Bill Peduto has refused now 2 court orders to release the information.
Now that's not a fact. They won't pay taxes. It's just quite likely and
We
indicative.
know.
No, we know, but let's not confuse it and say we know they won't pay taxes. Because I'm also quite convinced that's the case. But to clear the record here, they're keeping it a secret, right?
But the city of Pittsburgh, I'm not sure how many residents there are. I want to say there's like 125,000. Does that sound right?
It's approximately 320.
Is it 300? Okay,
In
so
Pittsburgh, yeah.
there's about 300,000 within the city limits. At one point in time, there were like 2.5 million within city limits. The city can handle 2.5 million people, easily.
Our infrastructure cannot.
Yeah, our
A lot
infrastructure
of the,
sucks.
Pun intended, the rubber meets
Our
the road.
cars are bigger, our houses are bigger, our people
And there's no
are
public
bigger.
transit either. Like there is, but there isn't. You know what I mean? Not for that.
I mean, if you look at places that are growing, if you look at Lawrenceville, like you cannot drive through Lawrenceville without poking your eyes out because the infrastructure is just, I mean, it's gridlock, you know?
Yeah, it was designed a long time ago and not updated.
Yeah.
You're right. Lawrenceville's growing. Millville, which we're in now, is doing very well. I'm very happy to see Millville grow. My office is in Carnegie. Carnegie is booming right now.
Killing it.
I think Carnegie is the best location in all of Allegheny County. But our region is shrinking. I mean, Washington County grew a little bit. Butler remained steady. Everywhere else, it's shrinking. And Amazon was throwing us like a big economic boom.
They weren't. They were never coming, I don't think. But go on.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I don't disagree that they always wanted to go to D.C. because Bezos gets a lot of
Lives
government
there,
contracts.
yeah.
Post Gazette put out a good article
Washington
today.
Post, so.
Post Gazette put out a good article today. They got a ton of data from all these cities. They got tons of information from these cities, and then they also had people. It was a bidding war. Who's gonna? I mean, I would love to see. There was legitimate concerns about we can't release our plan, because there is a competitive nature to this, and people will just prices right us. They'll let them pay 1% less tax. But having said that, it would be hilarious to see how much we are slaves to these massive corporations. I bet their deal was fucking killer for wherever they go.
Yeah, and that's my thing. So, the 2 largest property owners in Pittsburgh within the city are UPMC and the Catholic Church, neither of which pays property taxes.
Right.
You know Amazon, now you're right, we don't know, but we know Amazon's not going to be paying taxes. So now you're going to have 3 of the largest property owners in the city paying nothing. So who's going to pay? I'm going to pay. Not me because I don't live in the city, but you're going to pay.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay. I love
You're
this.
going to pay, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's who's going to pay for these taxes because, the $1 trillion company Amazon, they're just too poor. They can't handle it.
Yeah,
They can't make it.
And I will say as a final note, I mean, I've spent some time in Carnegie myself. I would suggest that we figure out what's going on with the Fort Pitt Tunnel before we invite 50,000 additional residents to come to our fair city.
Well, I do think that that's one of the benefits to bringing Amazon here is I do think that they would have spent money on infrastructure because they know that they can't bring their company here without those improvements.
Yeah, I don't know, and that's the thing I worry about this hidden proposal is like what concessions do we make that in the long term might,
Oh, that's a
come back
huge
to bite
issue.
us.
I agree, and I feel that we, as citizens, have a right to know what's being done with our tax money before it's being spent. And I think it's just, as a mayor who ran initially on transparency, talk about a slap in the face to the city and its constituents.
And just because this bidding war, as it was put, is over, I don't think this fight should end. I think we should still force the Peduto administration to disclose what we were going to be on the hook for.
Yeah, good point. I haven't even considered that. To what end other than embarrassing them, though?
Well, but I think
maybe only that end. But is there any other end?
Telling about the future of the city. I mean, we're still attractive to a lot of businesses, and like, what types of things are we even? I have no idea.
Now, do you worry that if we release that information? Because I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. I would love to see this information. Other than saying, wow, you were really going to screw us over, what end would it have? What if, like you said, other businesses come in here, they see the deal Amazon was going to get, they say, we're not as big, but you were going to pave their driveway in gold and they weren't going to pay taxes. What are you going to do for us? We're bringing up a window company with 13 employees here. Terrible example, but you get my point.
No, well, so I agree with your point that Amazon HQ2 was never going to come to Pittsburgh.
Well, now it's H2Q in two places, right?
In two places, right. They split in half.
I don't even know. Okay.
But I don't think that's... We have really smart people. We have some of the biggest law firms are based here. Reed Smith, Kirkpatrick, and Lockhart. There are incredible, brilliant minds there. They know what we're talking about here, okay? I don't think that Amazon HQ2 is the end game. I think the end game is we could have like a giant Amazon distribution warehouse here, and it could be cost effective for Amazon, it'd be good for us, good for everybody. So what I'm warning you about, and I don't know this to be true or not, I don't know. I'm all for transparency, I really am. But I'm saying let's not cut our nose off to spite our face if we don't know everything just yet. So I'm not a fan of Bill Peduto. However, let's give us a little bit of time to see how things unfold.
Shadier tactics.
No, I see what you're saying, and I'm not looking to run Amazon out completely. I'd love to have a presence here, but no, we need to know this information. We're taxpayers.
Well, we do
it's
have
our
a
money.
presence here. Are they like doing Alexa stuff and
I'm
studying
okay
AI and stuff like that? I mean, it depends on what kind of presence. I don't think Amazon is gonna work with a city to put a warehouse in, right? Like, you go to rural areas for that.
So the county owns like acres and acres and acres of land around the airport.
Oh yeah, that.
I think that would be an absolutely perfect.
That would be great. Yeah,
it would be an absolute perfect spot for a monster warehouse distribution.
It's like Dick's Sporting Goods has their corporate headquarters there, and they actually have their own hangar that's associated with the Pittsburgh International Airport. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like I said, I don't want to run Amazon out, but we have a right to know where our money's being spent.
Exactly.
And it's terrifying to know that these secret deals are being made. You look at like some of the stuff that Chicago is giving up. If I understand correctly, and I haven't read the full report, but I think they were actually going to be paying a portion of their taxes to Amazon.
Everything but the kitchen sink.
Yeah, to bring them there. So, I mean, if our deal's so great that we're keeping it that big of a secret and we made it to the next round and they didn't, my God, what are we giving up?
Yeah, and if that was the case, it would have been straight up selfish politics. As a homeowner, my property's values rise. And poor people, listen, I believe in being self-interested is the most moral way to operate. But people who didn't work for Amazon and didn't own homes were really getting the raw end of the deal there for sure. If they would have came, probably based on what we all think the deal would have looked like.
I think anyone who owns a car was going to be getting a raw deal.
Amen, yeah.
412-4072-PGH. That's the number to text. You can tweet me at RiverTalkPGH. And, of course, we're always welcoming your comments in the Facebook Live feed. I'm Brian Crawford here with Courtney, Sam, Jeff Betten, who's going to be running for Pittsburgh City Council, and Sean Logue, political attorney. This is the River's Edge radio broadcast for the election coverage here for the 2018 midterms. And I do have an update. Right now, the Republicans are still in the lead for the House, which is shocking. 65 seats so far, projected according to CNN to 61. And let's remember, CNN 2 years ago was the one of the companies we were looking at that had very misleading information in favor of the Democrats. So these numbers may be skewed. I don't know. The Republicans are up 42 to 35 in the Senate as well. Way different than what we were expecting, at least in the House. And we'll get back to you with our governor and Senate race locally here in just a few minutes. I want to talk a little bit about a text message that I received the other day. I talked a little bit about it on my show River Talk, which you can hear live on Facebook Friday and Sunday nights at 7, and then, of course, on the radio broadcast 10 a.m. the next day. I received a text message that said that Sarah Inamorata, who is running for state rep, who defeated incumbent Dom Costa in the primaries, that she believes that her district is racist, and it showed a YouTube link that took clips of the Drinking Partners podcast, which she appeared on, where she said that she felt that the people who lived here were racist. If you listen to the full conversation, as I did, I listened to the whole podcast, she did say that the district is racist, but if you listen to the conversation, I believe she meant that people in the district are racist, that there are racists that live here, and we need to work to help guide these people or bring these people to a greater understanding. Mm-hmm. That's my interpretation. She released a statement live while we were on air that said the same thing. Dom Costa is going to be running in a write-in campaign. Several people have organized him. Allegedly, a bipartisan group has organized a write-in campaign for Dom Costa. My question is, does anyone here think that Dom Costa stands a chance to win in this district on a write-in campaign? Jeff, you're shaking your head no.
Not a snowball's chance.
You don't think so?
Well,
No.
Let's get the interesting opinion. Sean, do you think he has a chance?
Yes, I do. And
I agree with Sean, by the way.
And I'll tell you why. Even though I am a right-wing Republican, I think that Senator Costa is actually a very good senator, and he's
Not the
representative,
quality of
but-
the candidate. Is he going to win, though?
Is he going to
On the
win?
write-in.
No, he's not going to win.
He has no chance. Not a snowball.
No. He has a chance.
Okay.
He has a very good chance.
Yeah.
I
Not
don't.
should he, in your opinion, but can he?
I know we're talking about Representative Costa. I know the whole story. I was just saying I like the Costa family personally.
Mm-hmm.
Does Representative Costa have a chance? Yes. Is he going to do it? I don't think so.
That's kind of where I stand. I don't
Yeah,
think
same.
it's going to happen, but I do think it could happen. And you know, everybody's been talking to me. I've been talking about this story with people on and off air, and everyone's like, "No, he'll never win. It's a write-in job, no chance." But your guy, Scott Wagner, he ran as a senator, won on a write-in campaign, much bigger district because it's a senatorial race. A representative's race is much smaller in the Commonwealth, so if it happened there, it could happen here.
That's I'm just thinking back because I was really touched. You know, as much as I was embarrassed by Wagner's campaign video where he says he's going to stomp on his cleats with golf, like I said, I was also touched in a positive way when he had the 400 paychecks that he was given to his employees. That's what rap videos should look like these days. For real, stop throwing money. Throw
Paychecks.
stacks of
But he's
paychecks
paying
for
the
people.
that work for him. I mean,
And
I don't think that's novel.
It's not
mean-
novel. It's just hard to do. It's hard to create
Well,
jobs.
to be fair, though,
sure.
his competitor Tom Wolfe also has been very successful in the private sector
Well,
and can
hold-
post the same similar video.
Well, hold on.
I ain't Team Wagner. I'm just saying that worked on me. That little symbolism.
Tugged on your heartstrings.
Tom Wolfe inherited a business, and a private equity firm bought out his business.
Yeah, and Donald Trump also had his father come in and give him huge loans to keep his casinos afloat.
Maybe, but Donald Trump is now a billionaire. But back to
He would have been more of a billionaire if he just kept it all in a hedge fund for his entire life.
Less of a billionaire without a tax fraud like we've never seen exposed in the United States.
But back to Wagner. I think Wagner is a hero. I mean, he's a hero. As somebody who employs people, like I'm up at night if I've never missed a payroll. I'm up at night worrying about revenues.
Could you be my boss? Because my boss has screwed up my pay multiple times,
Yeah.
and I work for
Well,
one of the
your boss.
largest employers in the country.
the people who work for me, they don't have to worry they're going to get paid. They're getting paid. If it comes out of my pocket, they're getting paid. My point is,
I think this is this is what you should be doing. If you start a company, you pay your people. If you
Absolutely.
can't pay your people, you have fewer people. I don't find this to be some commendable.
But
See, I
it's-
do because you're creating
Entrepreneurship
jobs.
is a very difficult endeavor.
It's the
And
hardest.
I
investment.
understand.
If you have a business, you got to pay the
entrepreneurship.
people
I
for sure.
understand.
But it's tough to. If you understand, it's tough to have 400 employees.
I get it, but I'm saying if you are incapable of doing those things, then figure it out and do it better. I'm not saying that it's challenging. I'm not saying anything about that. I'm saying that if this is a person who owns a business, I don't find it that impressive that he's paying his people.
No, not that he's paying them. I find it impressive that he owns a business.
That he built a business from nothing. Literally, it was him, another guy in a truck. And now,
Sure.
and now he owns this Penn Waste, and they employ like hundreds
I know.
of people.
I mean,
if he wasn't paying them, then I'd be coming down on him harder from the other direction.
No, I understand, but the idea that him paying his employees is some sort of thing that should tug on your heartstrings is bullshit.
No,
I
not
mean,
paying them. The fact that he has them, and if you, the
Well, I
fact
think
that you have 400 employees and he's supporting families in that way, I like.
Government didn't build this country. Private enterprise did. Entrepreneurs did.
Absolutely.
All right, people who gave up everything to take a chance. They're the ones who built. The people who built the city are the Mellons, the Fricks, the Carnegies,
Sure.
and those guys were ruthless, like robber barons. Okay, but they built. They literally built a city, and to say that like it's no big deal, they did. I just
I'm
I
not
don't
saying
get it.
it's no big deal. I'm saying if you have the inclination to build anything, you should do it right. And I don't necessarily
How many
commend you
people do
for
it
doing
wrong?
it right on a base level. Because the bar is so low, I'm supposed to get teary-eyed because Wagner holds some paychecks?
No, my response to you is that if you compare him, a guy who built a business from nothing.
Sure.
Okay, and I'm not saying Tom Wolfe because we can debate Tom Wolfe's business record. That's
Yeah,
fine.
I mean, sure.
Compared to somebody who's like a college professor, okay, or somebody who's been in government their whole lives who hasn't done that. I think that the entrepreneur who's built a business is like unbelievable compared to somebody who's never been in the private sector, who's never done anything.
Yeah, I don't think being in the private sector means you do nothing. But, I mean, I
public-
get it,
public-
and I
public-
get
public
it from
sec-
the
public
admiration
sector.
of a job creator, I suppose. But I mean, there are lots of people doing that stuff. I know the entrepreneurship community in Pittsburgh. I understand how difficult it is. There's a reason I don't own my own small business because it's not worth it.
Tough.
Yeah.
I didn't vote for him because he has a business. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
respect, good work.
Right,
in
and
that
I'm
regard.
just pissed at the idea that some guy can wave some paychecks around and we're like, oh God, he's
It
doing
felt
something.
like a rap video 2.0 though. He literally was going like this, and I was like, it was like the first time I saw a G-Unit video. I'm
Right.
like, yes.
So it's working, right?
Yeah.
He says something scandalous. We're still talking about it. He waves his paychecks around like a rap video, and and then we're all on board, right?
Quick update.
No, not on board. Not on board.
Quick
I
update.
just enjoyed the
17th
video.
Congressional District, Connor Lamb is up 61.59% with 46,000 plus votes to Keith Rothfuss's 38.41 at 28.9. I will say I had a source. I'm not allowed to reveal my source, but my source told me that Keith Rothfuss's internal polling had him down by 20 points.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I'm not surprised to see the results that we're
that's
seeing
a
now.
weird one.
Well,
Yeah.
the most insightful quote I saw on this race was, if you live by the gerrymandering, you die by the gerrymandering. He won his seat
Yep.
in a redistricting
Yep.
effort, and now he's losing it because of redistricting.
Yeah.
So I was on the other side of the Connor Lamb Rick Saccone race.
In the special election,
In the
yeah.
special election. And so I followed that very closely. Connor Lamb is the best politician to come out
He's
of this
incredible.
area
Oh, he's a savage.
in a very long time. And, if you look at his family, for instance, his family understands local politics better than just about any other family does. If you go on Connor Lamb's website right now, he doesn't talk about the border. He doesn't talk He doesn't talk about abortion. He doesn't talk about national security, NAFTA, and that stuff. He talks about the opioid crisis and protecting Social Security. And then in his district, he says, I'm not against the Second Amendment. I'm 110% pro-union. I will combat the opioid crisis, and I will not take your I'm Catholic, and I will not take your Social Security check. He understands his district. Sure. Those are the things you talk about in a southwestern PA district, because that's your population base.
Here's another example of his expertise. Okay, I was telling you guys before the show started, the way I like to approach politics, especially on election night, is the way Hunter Thompson did. Just look at the betting lines. Let's look at it through a gambler's perspective. Okay, it's the most fun way to do it. Forget what Donald Trump do us a favor. Hunter Thompson got the racetrack gentry involved in politics. But I went to a fundraiser for some Catholic school. It was a fish fry, they had hot dogs after, tons of booze, liquor, maybe 1,500 Catholics walking around. I'm like, it was a men's only event, which we were moderately offended by. We were talking about that. That's not the point. Who shows up? Connor Lamb, shaking hands with all the degenerate gamblers and drinkers, and that's how you win in Western Pennsylvania.
It is.
Well, he also is like, he appeals to so many different people, and I agree with you, Sean. He's definitely in a different league than most people in this area. He's that old school Democrat that people can get behind. He's not like, he's somebody that people from both sides of the aisle can really rally behind. He's not ultra progressive. He tends to be more middle of the road. And
he reads as very authentic.
He pledged not to vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker, which I thought was
he pledged not to vote for Nancy Pelosi, but he didn't turn down her money. She moved money from her congressional PACs. She moved her money to congressional PACs that then spent money on Connor Lamb.
I'm not in favor of not accepting money. The thing is, whenever you're fundraising for money, whenever you're taking money from people who are clearly affecting your vote, that you shouldn't do. But if someone's throwing you cash, it's not good strategy to turn it down because people might,
My only point is.
Sorry to cut you off.
My only point is that if the House is like locked, okay, and he has two choices, either Nancy Pelosi or somebody else, he's going with Nancy. And that's what happens.
True.
That's what happens when you get locked in a room. Like, look, it's now time. We need your vote.
How come no one said that the two-party system is the greatest threat facing this country yet tonight, huh?
That's a good question.
But
Sean, no.
You like two-party system?
Yeah.
I think things could be worse.
You agree as a Republican and an anti-Democrat. You agree with them on the most important issues. I haven't seen in the presidential debates, they don't say, what should we do about these foreign wars? They go, listen, you and me, I know we say we hate each other on Twitter and stuff, but let's just sweep that under the rug. Tonight we'll talk about immigration or not. The military, defense, they don't talk about it. They're on the same team when it comes to the biggest issues that our country faces.
But before Donald Trump, I would agree with you 100%, okay? Donald Trump has now said things. Now he's backtracked since he's been president. I acknowledge that, but he said things like, "Why are we still in NATO?" Okay.
Big acknowledgement, though.
All right.
Since it was a great thing and it got us independence on board. As an independent, I've been going, we need a wild card. I've been saying that for years. Donald Trump comes along. I'm like, shit. That's not exactly.
That's not the wild card I wanted. But the wild card you want, it's not going to be a nice guy, because a nice guy can't make it. But Donald Trump, I agree with you 100%. Before Donald Trump, you really had a two-party duopoly. You really had, you had the moderate Democrats.
The guy to break that trend was a Democrat his whole life, and then went Republican in name one day, started saying rude shit, and now he's broken the duopoly.
I think so. I think the answer is yes. I think he has brought populism to the forefront.
And actually, to disagree with you a little bit, if you look at a lot of Donald Trump's history, I've listened to some documentaries from him back in the 90s, where, especially when it comes to the media, he was saying the same thing word for word that he's saying now in front of these big rallies. The only difference is, my God, he looks like a Halloween character. I was watching this rally of him, and he must have just put his spray tan on, and it was literally a visibly
he
different
needed a stylist decades ago.
Well,
for real.
this was
where
bad.
credit's due. Ron Paul was actually saying
Ron Paul.
this in 2008 and 2012 before Donald Trump threw his hat in the ring. So again, I think there was somebody before Donald Trump asking these sort of questions.
There always was, but Trump has actually changed the dynamic completely. And
I think he changed it by the fact that he won and Ron Paul didn't.
Yeah, but we never talked about populist issues. Like for instance, like I said, Bill Clinton signed NAFTA. The Republican Congress got that through. NAFTA wasn't being debated anymore. Now Trump comes in, it's no, this was a terrible effing deal. And he ripped up NAFTA. I'm saying that we need to. What I believe Trump is saying, and I believe Trump. I don't want to say he talks to me personally, but he talks to people like me. Trump is saying, look, let's just look at all of our deals all over the world, and the question is, are these deals good for the United States? We have NATO. Okay, NATO is an alliance without a military. You take the United States out, and there is no NATO.
Right.
So we just accepted Montenegro, which is a tiny country next to Serbia, into NATO. If you know anything about the history of the Balkans, they're always fighting. They started World War I. They will always fight. You have all kinds of people who have ancient blood feuds. You have people from one valley who hate the people in the next valley. That's really the Balkans. if there's a war in Montenegro, the United States has to go in, and now we're tied up. If Russia, however, were to invade, Montenegro's not going to help us fight the Russians. What I'm saying, what I believe Trump has said in the past, is that we need to look at these deals. And NATO, in my opinion, is a boondoggle. It's a bad deal, and we should only look out for our own national strategic interests. And
you think NATO's a bad deal?
I absolutely think it's a bad deal.
And how so?
Here's my answer. So the former Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, okay, they are now members of NATO. If you get some tin pot dictator or right wing or left wing president for that matter, who gets into like a border shooting match with Russia,
okay,
we now are obligated to defend them with nuclear weapons, if need be, to protect the integrity of Estonia. Meanwhile, if the United States gets attacked by Russia, okay, Estonia's not going to come to fight for us. And NATO was absolutely worthless in Afghanistan. Do me a favor and on your free time, Google how well did the NATO armies do in Afghanistan. They hid in their bases while us and the British and the Australians went out and fought.
I will say, as a son of Lithuanian immigrants, we take NATO very seriously. We're very prepared for that.
You know what? No. I have very complicated beliefs in foreign policy. I want to see,
and we're ready to fight Russia if it ever comes to it. So.
I want to see us strengthen Lithuania and Poland. Okay, that's a very important foreign policy issue that I have. But I'm talking about the NATO alliance as a whole.
Sure.
I think is worthless.
But you don't think there's an obligation for the biggest military and an enormous GDP to contribute to the?
I think there is, but I do think it's time that these other countries start paying their fair share, and that's one thing that Trump has.
I guess for me the question is, what is the fair share?
Well, the best way for us to achieve that is for us to pay less rather than asking them to pay more, because no one has the money to catch up with us.
That's
just
sort
like
of,
we don't have the money to be us.
Well, all of these countries under NATO, and not to defend Trump, but I will on this issue, they have all agreed to reach a point where they're going to be. What is the percentage, Sean?
It's 2% of 2%
of GDP.
And right now, only 3 countries do that: Poland, Great Britain, and
the United States.
And the United States.
Right,
none of the rest of them are doing it.
And well, France is close. They're close, and the date hasn't been reached yet. So France is on track to meet 2% of GDP. And actually, Germany isn't that far off, despite Trump completely going after Germany as the big issue. They're really not. But there's a lot of countries that are nowhere near 2%, despite signing on.
If everyone could meet those goals, then that would be fair to you guys.
Well, I think that would be fair,
I'm just saying, in opposition of NATO, if we're willing to pull all the way out rather than...
Well, I don't think we should pull out. I don't agree with that. I think we should stay in. I think and this is one issue I have with Trump, is he'll just pull out of an agreement instead of staying in and using...
The diplomacy bit.
Yeah. Well, you lose your leverage when you completely pull out. Then there's no reason to even talk with you at that point.
But what does it buy us to be in NATO? I don't get it.
Well, what NATO is our organization. NATO is
with a specific agenda.
Yeah, it was to keep the Russians out
Cold
of
War
West Germany, essentially. So without the United States, I agree that it would be a toothless organization. It would, pick your metaphor, it would fall like a house of cards. But.
Yeah, and regardless, without the United States, we're always going to pay more because we have the largest economy in the world. Our 2% of GDP is going to be way more than any other country. So I don't think that we should pay the same as anyone else. I just think that everyone should be paying the same percentage. Because let's be honest, NATO benefits these countries in Europe much more than it does the United States.
Much more.
And they're not paying their fair share.
Right. So again, what do we get out of this organization?
Well, I think we get a lot out of it because Russia is they've been mingling with our elections, and I'm not saying it's pro-Trump or anti-Trump, but they've definitely been involved with trying to create a feeling of our election process not being genuine. And I'm not saying that they were putting Trump in. There have been reports that they've gone the other way too, and they are trying to create distrust. They are a threat to the United States, and I think having other allies, especially allies right at their doorstep, is a benefit to the United States.
That's actually a very interesting point that you just made. Russia's GDP is smaller than Italy's. Okay, Russia does have a large military and
a lot of nukes.
And a lot of nukes, and on the European continent, they're probably the best military because they've been active. The other European nations, like their militaries, just haven't been active. Mm-hmm. Poland is steadily growing their military, and I'm very happy to see that. I don't see Russia as this great threat. Russia is not going to walk through Poland. They might get past the Baltic states, but they're not going to get past Poland. The Russians have serious problems. The price of oil is now so low that they're not making money, and their economy is shrinking. Their population in 10 years, their military will be half the size of it that it is now.
But they realize that in that realization, they are becoming much more aggressive in the international community, and that it's a threat, an immediate threat.
And it's less of we're concerned that they're going to march their way into Warsaw than they're a destabilizing force. Whether it's not even in American elections, but as we saw in French elections, potentially Brexit, potentially all around the world, their goal is destabilization.
And they're also cozying up with China, too, which creates a big threat as well.
Trust me, China and Russia are much more fearful of each other than they are of the United States.
And that may be true. My main point is that, to the extent that they're attempting to destabilize, global peace is, to whatever extent that they are or not successful, the fact that they're attempting that is something that we should resist.
We'll take your comments, 412-4072-PGH on Twitter at RiverTalkPGH, and of course in the Facebook Live feed. We're going to take a quick break because I got to take a piss, and when we're back, we're going to give a call to Jeremy Schaefer, see if we can get a hold of him and hear a little bit about his election. He's actually down right now in the polls to Lindsey Williams with the current results. And he is down right now. He's up. Lindsey is at 56.67%, and Jeremy Schaefer is at 43.33%. I'm going to piss, and then when we're back, we're going to see if we can get Jeremy Schaefer. This is the River's Edge Radio Network.
Hey, it's Mike Sasson. Guess what? You used to love us at 10. You're going to love us even more at 9. It's me. It's Alex. It's funniness. It's guests. It's all sorts of me yelling into microphones only 1 hour earlier. It's exactly what you need at 9 o'clock. It's like a shot of adrenaline. It's the Mike Sasson Show, now starting at 9 o'clock on Tuesday on the River's Edge, a new kind of radio.
All right, I feel relieved, and we're back. This is the River's Edge Radio Network election night coverage. You may be feeling relieved, depending on where your political schwang flings. I'm feeling relieved because I just came back and feeling refreshed. I know you refreshed yourself, right, Courtney?
I did, yes. Yeah. My schwang is flinging.
Courtney Francis, Sam Leonard, and Sean Logue. Jeff Betten just left us. Haven't heard yet back from Jeremy Schaefer. He may be dipping into a little bottle right now based on the current results. I don't know. Daryl Metcalf is not sad. I know, Sam, you had asked. Daryl Metcalf is up right now.
Oh, no.
But it's very early. Only 615 votes reported for Daryl Metcalf.
Well,
he's at 61.13% compared to his opponent, Daniel Smith, who is at 38.87%. I'm more interested in Mike Torzai, which I'm going to look up here in just a few minutes because, again, and I got into an argument with someone because they were like, oh, he's great. He wants to lower... well, it's someone who's a friend of mine, and she made a good point. She's like, he wants to shrink the size of the state legislature, which I'm 100% in favor of. We have the largest full-time legislature in the country, and that's why we spend so much money wasted, and it's so corrupt in Harrisburg. There are some people who say that Harrisburg is more corrupt than Washington, D.C., and part of that has to do with because we have such a large full-time legislature. So I agree with them there. But my drinking water takes precedence over the size of the legislature. If I'm sick and I'm poisoned because I'm drinking bad water, I don't give a damn how big the legislature is or how much corruption there is. And what makes me so sick about it is the reason why Mike Torzai, in my opinion, is so in favor of privatization and working with Peoples is because guess who's one of his biggest campaign donors is? Morgan O'Brien, the CEO of Peoples Water. Yeah. And guess where he also gets money from? A PAC that Peoples is a part of. So he's got tons of money coming in from Peoples despite having 0 constituents that live within the PWSA limits. But he's one of the biggest voices in the whole privatization conversation. The only good thing that he's done is because Bill Peduto and him hate each other, him coming out in favor of privatization has forced Bill Peduto to take a step back in his quest to privatize, because let's be honest, Bill Peduto wants to privatize it as well.
He doesn't want to align with Torzai.
Yeah. If Jeremy Schaefer is on hard times right now and he's like blacked out on alcohol somewhere, I just got to say he's wasting his money. Listen, when my bar dries up at home and I need a cocktail, I just crack that tap water. I go down to the stationary sink in the basement. I get like 16, 32 ounces. It's a buzz like you've never felt when you drink the water in Mount Washington.
You know what? When I went to Cal U, we used to pour. I lived in Brownsville, technically. So it was like minutes from the university, but my address was in Brownsville. So I'm assuming my water came from Brownsville. And the water was so creepy. Like you would turn on the faucet and the water would pull in and it would literally fizzle over like a can of soda.
Nice.
Oh no!
It's a high pour.
Terrifying.
It's a high pour tap water.
High pour tap water. Yeah. So that was the first time I ever had a water filter. I don't know what was in it.
This is actually
but it was
aged 8 hours in lead-stricken pipes on the
Yeah.
way from the distribution lines to your house. You know, I can see like craft tap. You know.
I agree. So I had thought about. So I had posed the question several months ago on Facebook. I had asked the question: can I vote for Lou Barletta's dog? Because I don't know if you heard the stories. He wanted to make himself seem more personable. He wanted to seem more friendly, so he started going on the campaign trail with his dog. Well, I'm not a big fan of Lou Barletta because I think he's going to just be a pawn for Donald Trump, and I want people. I would like to see a divided government. I don't want to see a government that's together because a government that works together is working against you. But
Good point.
yeah, but Bob Casey is the do-nothing senator. He's the guy who always makes it into office because there's nothing that anyone can say bad about him because he doesn't do anything except for that one time whenever he was a co-sponsor for the bill to try to censor the internet. Let's not forget about that. But Bob Casey, I once did a nature special on him where I mentioned the creature Bob Casey who comes out of hibernation every 6 years to pound his chest.
Yeah.
And then once he wins re-election, you never see him again for another 6 years.
Sure.
That's Bob Casey. That's the Bob Casey that we know. He goes into hibernation. He roars his head like a rooster. He crows into the several microphones. And then once the election's over, you never hear from him, unless he's trying to censor the internet. So I didn't know who to vote for. I ended up voting third party because I just didn't think there was anyone to vote for. But my God, what an awful choice of candidates. I feel like it's 2016, where we had a lot of rubbish to choose from in a lot of races.
So just FYI, I donated to Lou Barletta, and
So you're listening to me, and you're like,
it's okay. You're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah.
And I've had personal lunches with Lou. I think Lou's a wonderful guy, and Lou, on his own, built a business that he ended up selling. And when he sold it, it was like the third largest type of business. He painted lines on roads basically, and he built a giant business to do that on like an industrial scale from nothing. He then became the mayor of Hazleton because he wanted to fix Hazleton's budgetary problems. Their budget was just a mess. He comes in and is the mayor, and lo and behold, Hazleton, which is in the middle of nowhere, had this massive illegal immigrant problem. So he tried to tackle it, and he was not successful in doing it because the federal government wouldn't help him. And when he tried to do it at the local level, he got sued and blocked because they said, it's a federal issue. So he'd say, well, if it's a federal issue, why aren't you guys coming in and solving it? So when he got no response, he ran for Congress. Now he's running for Senate. He wants to end sanctuary cities. He wants to build a wall. And you're right, he wants to further the Trump agenda.
Do you think he would stand up to Trump if he disagreed with him?
I think he would. He was like Trump's top three supporters.
He's a little bit of a lackey.
Stick up to him how?
Yeah.
Ted Cruz style or?
Right.
How good was Jim Carrey's tweet against Ted Cruz? This is just drama, but he said like.
That's right. We like drama. It's good for ratings.
Yeah. He said something. I was hoping someone would know what I was talking about. He just nailed Ted Cruz. Like, oh, you're.
Who, by the way, is not doing very well in his race. I will
Really?
say, looking at the
I don't want to
results
talk about Texas,
right
but
now, 75% are in, and Ted Cruz is ahead, 50.1% to 49.2%,
Wow.
which is really, really bad given where he is at in Texas, being an incumbent.
Yeah.
That's razor thin. Who
Razor
knows?
thin.
If things tighten up even further, we may not know the results until tomorrow. To show you how close it is by votes, Ted Cruz has 2,846,000 plus votes to O'Rourke's 2,796,000 votes.
So beautiful Ted is not the most likable of guys.
That's true.
And that's
That's the nickname you're reassigning. Lion. It's Lion.
Well,
Ted.
Trump has now said it's Beautiful Ted.
Yeah.
So, Beautiful Ted is not the most likable of guys, and that's okay.
Can I just say I wish Trump was a talk radio host instead of a president
God.
because he is
Right.
hilarious as a
great.
talker.
He's great.
But as a president, he
best.
scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
That's what he
That's
says.
okay. But so Beautiful Ted is not the most likable of guys. But Beto, this guy Beto, okay. I've heard nonstop about how wonderful Beto is. I have lawyer friends telling me how cool he is because he plays guitar and stuff. I tell my lawyer friends like you guys, you're falling for a media creation. Like the media, they went out and they found this guy and they said, "Wow, he's so cool. Let's build him up."
But you're also pretending like Ted Cruz had nothing to do with people wanting something other than Ted Cruz, right?
Well, let me ask you this: do you know that Beto's wife, okay, is the heiress, like the sole heiress to like a multi-billion-dollar fortune? Think about it. All the mainstream media coverage of Beto, and they never tell us.
Right.
Interesting.
That-
Didn't know that.
Absolutely.
Huh?
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
you didn't know that, but they told us constantly how wonderful he is. They didn't tell us that he was like a multi-billionaire.
Does it? I mean,
But don't you have to be to
again,
run for office?
you-
Yeah.
if we're going with the who creates jobs and who has a bad attitude, like by our own arguments and earlier today, does it matter where his wife's money comes from or that she has any money?
That's not my point, and I agree with you. I love capitalism. I'm not discouraging her for being rich. God bless her father for working so hard. My point is that we had like constant like profiles of this guy. He's everywhere. He's Beto. He's Mr. Cool. He's this and that.
He's your friend, kind
Yeah,
of.
and he's a billionaire.
When you have who's the city councilman that was just elected? Brookline's his district. He has a roofing company.
Oh, I know who you mean. I can't think of his name.
Me
but-
either. Damn it. Okay, listen. I was like soft on this guy. I needed my roof redone. I call his company. Someone gives me a suggestion. Call him. I go. I'm not calling. He just got elected to city council. His business is going to go down the tubes. I call for some roofing work. He fucking calls me back, the city councilman. I'm like,
oh, wow.
you're the
He
guy
himself.
for my roof,
Wow.
and I'm campaigning for you next year. You
Nice.
know what I mean? Yeah, how cool is that?
No,
No, let me just say
No, go
though,
ahead.
when it comes to this job creation, when you're giving out 400 paychecks, that's like that impresses me. Blah blah blah. Whenever you're, who's our friend in Michigan, anti-education, pro-privatization? She's married to Eric Prince of Blackwater.
No, that's her brother.
Brother.
Betsy DeVos.
Betsy
yeah.
DeVos.
Oh,
Okay,
DeVos,
so,
yeah.
all these people. When you have $1 billion, I hate to be anti-capitalist because I am a capitalist. But whenever you get that successful, you're not a capitalist anymore. Typically, you're cheating like hell
You're,
and
like,
in
out of the
cahoots
system.
with a corrupt government.
What
There's no
is the
free
line for
market
that,
in play.
though?
I don't know what the line is.
Yeah, like, I mean,
that's
how
an
do
impossible
you-
question to answer.
What? But you're making.
No, but you bring a good point. You're not asking me to say where's the line. You're
Right,
saying
it's-
up where
it's
should the line be.
rhetorical,
I don't
but,
really know.
you know.
I don't really know.
No,
Yeah.
you're right. You're right. You graduate to like another level. You're like
Yeah.
you're a philanthropist. You're no longer.
If
I want to be a
that's bad-
philanthropist.
Yeah, that's a.
Can I be one?
You,
Like,
you
I'd
say
love
that
to
as
have
an
that money.
insult? I mean, I'm saying
I say that as
I want you to
somebody-
use it as an insult.
Well, so what you do is you create a trust that doesn't get taxed,
Yeah.
and then you donate money to get out of tax issues.
Yeah.
That's what I'm calling it.
That's the problem is we have all these capitalists that all of a sudden, once you get big and once you get an opportunity, you're not a capitalist anymore.
Sure.
You're a socialist.
That's
Sure.
100% true. That's a
Yeah,
very good point.
and that speaks to your point earlier about the kind of the party divides and the shifting demographics of who's a Democrat and who's a Republican and who's doing what. With
I
their
got
money.
engaged in politics during a tremendous economics class in high school, as silly as that sounds. It's in 2008 when the banks are being bailed out, and my mind could not handle this. I wasn't pro-capitalism at the time. I was hardcore progressive. I'm a communist at this point in my evolution. But I didn't get the bailout. I wanted to see these banks that failed crumbled. And I'm going, these are the capitalists of our nation. These are the barons. I won't use the term robber baron, but these are the big wigs. And now they're accepting bailouts to the tune of $1 trillion. What happened to capitalism? The thing that we're all rooting
Responsibility
for.
and
You're
all of
cheating
that.
100%.
Sure.
So to bring it all back to Bob Casey and Lou Barletta, we've got
Keep it local, Brian. You're the best. Come time for the king. the king of local news, Brian Crawford. If I can put my boot on his neck, I'll take that opportunity too. But for now, he's got the throne.
Knock me out and stomp on my head with golf cleats.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Top spot. So, Bob Casey, how do we get these guys out of office? I remember, like, you got to wait for them to make a mistake. I guess, but like I look at Jim Casorio, which is like a race I was really personally involved with, so not to pat myself on the back, but I'll do it twice. Jim Casorio would be in office for Brian Crawford getting involved as the only local official to come out publicly, the only one with the balls to come out publicly against Jim Casorio when he was in office. And we're talking about a guy who was in office for 12 years.
Wait,
as a
where?
pension out in the Norwin area, Penn Trafford area, that district.
Give us the 2 minutes on your history, as you did so eloquently on my podcast, my interview with you. Brian's deep into this shit. He got this guy elected single-handedly when he was like 16.
Single-handedly, but
that's what you said on the show. Well, maybe you said, I won't say single-handedly, but, and he raised the single hand. Something along those lines.
Well, I don't know if George Dunbar would have won without me, I'll be honest.
There you go.
But it wasn't single-handed. I was part of a tapestry of things working towards George Dunbar's
He's back in
success.
Political speak mode now.
But we've got Jim Casorio. He was in office for 12 years. He co-sponsored one piece of legislation dealing with animal abuse. That's it, in 12 years of office. But he didn't do anything wrong.
Sure.
And he brought in the handout money, so everyone kept voting him in. Bob Casey, to me, is the same kind of guy. He's somebody he does very little. He collects a check. How do you get rid of this guy? Because he doesn't do anything wrong. The way we got rid of Casorio was he voted for Ed Rendell's budget, which spent $1 million to build a brand new library in Philadelphia in honor of Arlen Specter when we had bridges falling over in southwestern Pennsylvania. That's how we got rid of Casorio. How do we get rid of Bob Casey? Is it, the censorship bill kind of went under the rug. That's a big deal for me.
Right.
We got to catch him on something. Or is there some other way that we can get rid of Bob Casey? Do we need to put up a better candidate? Is Lou not the right guy? I don't know. You know Lou better than I do. Is Lou the right guy, or is that the problem? Or do we need to find something with something that catch Casey in something? Also, what do you guys think too? I want to hear your guys' thoughts.
Here's the problem. To beat somebody like Casey, okay, you need somebody who's got like serious money and who's got guts, okay, and it could be a male, it could be a female. I'm not saying it has to be a sex thing. I think Martha McSally from Arizona is the best candidate tonight, right now. You need somebody like that. And that person has to be like ultra aggressive. Because if they don't say anything, it's not going to get like transmitted through social media and stuff like that.
Interesting point. Because I feel sad to agree. You said we need an ultra regressive candidate.
Aggressive.
And it make
aggressive.
Okay.
Ultra aggressive. I want an ultra aggressive candidate. But when you get something like that, you get Scott Wagner. And now there's backlash because
on both counts, I think.
You're getting both.
Aggressive,
right.
Wagner.
There are trade-offs, is what I'm saying. And Bob Casey, I'm so disgusted by the guy. His father was a great man. Okay, his father, on his own merits, became governor, stood up to the Democratic National Committee, was a very good governor. And his son has been in office his whole life, and I can't name one accomplishment. And like you said, but he's been voted multiple times like the most ineffectual senator in the entire Senate.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And if you watch the debate, I tell you guys you should watch the debate between him and Lou Barletta. Lou stands his clock, and he just stands like a deer in the headlights.
I definitely believe you that Lou probably knows way more than Bob Casey, because Bob Casey does nothing. Right. He does nothing, literally nothing. And I'm talking to my friend Matt Sherrow, who's the mayor of Menneson. He said he loves Menneson. I'm like, well, that's great, but if he doesn't pass any legislation, who gives a shit?
Right.
That's what you're there for. You're being paid to pass laws or try to pass laws.
Even
if you're a complete failure as a legislator, as far as in terms of everything you push through, nothing nothing comes to fruition. If you're at least trying,
you're working,
I can appreciate that.
We can't elect good candidates anymore. We don't have good candidates. It's actually been forever. Immanuel Kant, the philosopher, used to say, the last good Christian died on the cross. The last good Pennsylvania politician was Bud Dwyer, okay?
Bud Dwyer. Which one was he? He was,
Yeah, he's got a storied history.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the last good politician died in a plane crash with Senator Hayes.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
Which could have been president.
No,
there were a lot of projections that he would have been the president of the United States if he didn't die in that crash. So,
Yeah. No, I mean, it's easy also to stay a senator, right? I mean, it is, and it's...
It is,
it's,
yeah.
If you are just benign, you can do that for a really long time.
Easiest race to win is not the easiest race to win, but the easiest race to maintain is a state house race. I think a state house race, it's extremely difficult to unseat a state house representative because they're local. People know you personally. They come, like for example, people will come in. And that was one of the big things, because as I had worked for George Dunbar for a year after he had taken office, and people came in and they were terrified because they would go and get just basic things done, very basic things done from Jim Casorio, and they thought that Jimmy was doing them a favor. Jimmy's got my back. Jimmy's helping me out. Well, we could do the exact same stuff with George, and people didn't realize that. And they spent, and that's one thing that I love about Governor Wolf, and I think you would agree with me on this, Sean, is anytime that something comes through the Commonwealth that's like a statewide program, it says on there, paid for by the taxpayers. Whereas every other governor that I can remember in my past has said, Tom Corbett governor, what's his name? Fast Eddie Rendell governor. All of those people, like it always had the governor's name. It almost came across as like a campaign pitch. Right. Whereas with Wolf, to his credit, he doesn't put that on any of the stuff. It always says paid for by Pennsylvania taxpayers, which is what it should say. And like with Jim Casorio, anytime he had walking around money for the fire departments, you had freaking campaign bumper stickers on the local municipal fire trucks roaming through Norwin because, Jimmy got us the money. Well, no, Jimmy didn't get you shit. The taxpayers paid for the money. Jimmy was a facilitator of those.
And you're supposed to represent the people. I mean, and it is optics, right, to put paid for by taxpayers versus like your own name on something.
But you were talking about politicians sleeping. You know, Tom Wolf, he's asleep at the wheel.
I don't agree with that at all. I think Tom Wolf has been very active. I think he's met a lot of resistance in the legislature.
So the last budget. The last budget, it was Turzai negotiating against the state senate. And Wolf, he was asleep somewhere. Like, you couldn't even get a hold of him. Okay.
No, the budget was a mess.
The budget was a complete mess, but the governor sat it out. He let the Republicans in the Senate argue.
I think he also took a different approach because the first time he came in balls to the walls trying to get his agenda pushed through.
Nobody even responded. Yeah.
And they were vehemently against him, and I agree with them because he was trying to push a tax plan, a tax increase that was larger than every other tax increase from every other state in the country combined right here in Pennsylvania, and that was head in the clouds. He came in thinking that people voted for him because of his policies when really people just really didn't like Tom Corbett, and they voted for someone other than Tom Corbett. And a lot of that was misleading, I will say, to defend Tom Corbett, even though I thought he was a very ineffectual governor. I thought, my God, you had a Republican House, a Republican Senate, a Republican Supreme Court, and you couldn't accomplish anything. He was pitiful. But what brought him down was the education funding, and that was unfair. It was unfair because Fast Eddie Rendell cut the state budget to education drastically, filled it in with a one-time stimulus package that had a shelf life. It expired. And then Corbett had to try to make up the distance, but the union said that he cut the budget when really, under Corbett, not his initial budget, but after the negotiations with the legislature, the Pennsylvania actually spent more money on public education than ever in the state history, but it still came short of what was supplemented through federal stimulus money. So it was a complete mischaracterization of the education budget that still people to believe to this day. And I saw the information because I worked for the House at the time. I saw the numbers laid out, exactly where the money came from. And it came from federal stimulus.
That's a great summary. I couldn't agree with you more. I used to work for Corbett. Mm-hmm. And, the problem with Corbett is Corbett's a prosecutor.
He's a lawyer, yeah.
He's a prosecutor.
That's the angle for everything.
Well, but he's not a politician. He was a career
He was a bad politician. He probably could have been a good governor, but he was a bad politician.
And Ed Rendell, who I am not a big fan of.
He was awful.
He was a master politician, though. A master politician. And if you needed something, he'd get it for you. He'd figure out. He manipulated the budget. He did whatever. And the guy could govern. And you can say what you want about him, but the guy knew how to govern. And there's a whole art to governing. And Corbett didn't play those games. And then he got slammed on his head over it. Wolf, I think, is kind of like Corbett. I think Wolf has just been sitting things out like Casey has.
I just don't agree. I feel like Wolf's been very active in a lot of issues. He's pushed for a huge infrastructure plan for Pittsburgh. that he's pushing to really beef up our infrastructure, which is sorely needed. He's been on the
I
front
like
lines
that.
of the opioid crisis as well, and really pushing for resolutions to that issue. I can't say that he's just been sitting on the sideline. I feel like Wolf has accomplished way more than Corbett has as a governor in an opposing party than Corbett did with a legislature of like-minded people.
Back to the budget. Wolf sat out the budget debates. Literally, just sat out the budget debates. Wolf tried to get in a giant tax increase, and like you said, and that failed. Wolf wants to get a severance tax in. Okay, he wants to tax natural gas. Now we tax natural gas at the local level, and that money benefits local communities. He wants a statewide tax on natural gas. Well, they're not drilling out east; they're only drilling here. So where's that money to go? It's going to go to Philadelphia. Okay, he's trying to take money from here. And
I definitely agree with that. I'm in favor of higher.
That's like the age-old fight: is where's the money going, to Pittsburgh or to Philly?
You're right.
You know?
Well, I'm definitely in favor of higher impact, or I shouldn't say I'm in favor of higher impact fees. I'm open to higher impact fees, much more so than I am a statewide tax, like you said, that will rape our resources and give it to Philadelphia.
That's exactly what Wolf wants, and then you should check out his education plan. Wolf wants to redo the education system about how schools get funded, and lo and behold, our rural schools are going to lose a lot of money, and that money is going to go to Philadelphia metro schools. Like, that's who Wolf is, and Wolf, he comes across like he's nice and he's quiet, and he's very unassuming.
I just think he's an adult, which is something that's sorely missing in today's political
He looks
climate.
like Edgar Snyder.
He does look like Edgar Snyder. But I think he's a wolf. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Wolf's clothing.
Yeah, wolf in wolf's clothing. That's how I see him. And he's not the infrastructure thing. I agree with. That's a Democratic thing. I would actually agree with. But other than that, like, the guy just wants to take our money and send it to Philadelphia, because Philadelphia is a black hole of debt that can never be solved.
412-4072-PGH. That's the number to text at River Talk PGH. I'm Brian Crawford here with Courtney Francis, Sam Leonard, and Sean Logue, our resident political attorney here on the River's Edge Radio Network. It's election night. I have to ask real quick, does anyone here have to take a leak?
No, good.
No, everyone's good. All right, so right now with over 50% in, 54.59% in, Bob Casey is up 57% to Lou Barletta, who is at 40.98%. Tom Wolf is up 59.18% to Scott Wagner's 39.30%, which is right in line with where I kind of figured things would be, because you've got your Republicans that are going to come out, but I do think that especially in the case of Wolf and Fetterman, I think they're a much stronger ticket in this particular political climate here in Pennsylvania.
I have a question. How do people feel about Wolf and running with Fetterman? What's that about?
Well, so that's an interesting conversation. So Wolf,
I mean, if that's one that's on the docket for things to talk about.
No, it can be.
Like,
I think it's
We got to talk Fetterman.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I've had a couple conversations about that pairing.
Well, the reason why is, so the way it is in Pennsylvania, it's really interesting. The way Pennsylvania law works out is, you vote on your lieutenant governor. In most states, the governor, the person who is elected to represent their party, will pick their lieutenant governor. In Pennsylvania, it's an elected position. Well, it turns out that the lieutenant governor who was elected when Wolf won office, he and Wolf hate each other. And in fact, they hate each other so much that they're often not even on speaking terms, despite needing to work together in the same branch of government. Hate each other. And the current lieutenant governor, and Sean, you as a conservative would appreciate this. He's a frivolous spender, wastes money. So you don't want him in there.
He actually lost his state police security detail
because he abused it so much.
Because he was abusing the state police.
So Governor Wolf was looking for someone new, and that's actually how Fetterman ran for office, as somebody who could work with Governor Wolf and actually be an asset to the administration, versus being somebody who's on the opposite side of things. Yes.
Sorry, I was just going to say also the momentum of his previous campaign was big as well.
Well, he did very badly in that Senate race, though.
No. Results-wise, yes, but showing up on Bill Maher does a lot for a lot of people's hearts.
So I'm not a fan of Fetterman at all, and so Fetterman ran a campaign rally. It was in the Strip District when Donald Trump came to town the first time. And his campaign rally, members of that rally then left and then protested Trump. And this was all planned by Fetterman. And some of those people, I'm not saying people were directed by Fetterman, but some of the people that were in his crowd for his rally, where he was calling Trump a jagoff and stuff like that, came and protested the Trump rally. And some of those people pepper sprayed the police and pepper sprayed my fiance and her son,
God.
who were in line to go and see Trump.
I was there also.
It was an absolute disaster.
Did you get pepper sprayed with everyone else?
No, I didn't get sprayed, but I was there with a T-shirt that said Lessig 2016. I was a Lawrence Lessig guy. His campaign lasted like maybe 60 days, but he was going to fix every problem that this country's facing right now. Truly he was never going to win, blah, blah, blah. But the funny thing, I always told people my soundbite from that was, I was at the Donald Trump rally just seeing what's going on with my democracy. These are trying times.
It's kind of interesting to do, right? We went to a
Hell
Hillary
yeah.
Clinton
Of
rally
course,
when I was
yeah.
at Cal U,
Okay.
and I didn't like Hillary Clinton.
So I'm in
Sure.
line to get in, and I have the shirt on that says Lessig 2016, who is not Donald Trump, running in the same race. People are coming up to me going, "Fuck you!" I'm like, I'm just here to watch. Like, what are you talking about?
Were you outside when these Antifa types came? And
Yeah, they walked up like ninjas,
Antifa
cloaked in
types.
black.
This is true.
Truly looking like the Foot Clan
And
from the Ninja
we-
Turtles.
we-
Black.
What does Antifa types
executioner
mean,
mask.
though? Yes, I've seen those people.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was officially Antifa who crashed the
Which
rally.
there's not an official Antifa, but yes,
But-
go
but-
ahead.
No, there's no official ISIS either, and
Right.
Al-Qaeda, right?
Yes, right.
But
Oh,
their
of
cells
course.
all independent of each
but-
other.
Right, but you don't say that they're official.
There was an organized group dressed in all black that came upon the Trump people who were just in line to get in, and they dropped like pepper spray bombs. Okay, and
yeah.
everybody got hit by it.
No,
So you were
it
there.
wasn't bombs, but even worse than that. I didn't see any bombs, but I saw true targeted pepper spraying in people's faces. Many of which weren't being too ridiculous. They were just supporting the candidate
Right.
that they showed up to
Right.
a rally to see.
Right.
Much as I disliked the guy, they weren't there saying, I hate black people. They were just there supporting Trump, and they would get pepper sprayed in the eye just for that fact.
Can I say I always enjoyed whenever the G20 conference, and it is talk about an organization that does exist but doesn't exist when
Yeah.
anarchists organized a parade. I always thought that
Sure.
was kind of funny.
Yeah,
But,
Yeah.
quick update before we continue. Guy Rushenthaler is up right now 56.95%. That's part of that district's out of Westmoreland County, which part of that district actually covers where Connor Lamb used to be. I did this whole intro when I introduced Connor Lamb onto the show where I said, he is the incumbent from this district facing the incumbent of this district, but they're going in this district,
Yeah.
and I used to be able to vote for him when I lived here, but now I can vote for him when I live here, but where I used to live, I couldn't have voted for him, and last time I couldn't have voted for him because I lived here. It was really confusing.
how it is.
Are you the best constituent or the worst constituent?
Am I a constituent? I don't even know. I'm still confused.
No, seriously.
But yeah, Guy Rushenthaler, he is up 56.95%. And speaking of Connor Lamb, he is up 58.48% with 125,700 plus votes to Keith Rothfuss's Rothfuss. It's such a weird name. 41.52%.
While we're talking socialism and Ocasio-Cortez, let's talk Sarah Innamorato a little bit. And did we get into that issue?
About
The text message?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it. Did we think?
Do we like her?
Do we like her? I think she.
I mean, I definitely like her.
I like her as a person. I think
same,
she.
for sure.
I mean,
That's
I've
kind
never
of
met her, but
undeniable.
I
She seems
feel
really nice.
She seems nice. I think she's genuine. I think most of these Democratic socialists are genuine people. I don't always agree with 100% with their policy stances,
Same.
but I think that they're decent, real people. I think her energy is dynamic, and I feel like that. She had no business. Let's be honest. She had no business tackling Dom Costa. She did it because she put her foot on the ground and she walked the houses and she did the work that is necessary to win a local race, and state representative is a local race. It's maybe outside of your local municipal council the most local race that someone runs in, and she worked her ass off. I could not turn around without seeing someone with her shirt on, handing out brochures. Her people were everywhere all the time, very passionate, and they just didn't stop. And she deserved that win. And I'm a friend of Dom Costa's. I don't know her, so I could be a friend with her as well. But, I like Dom Costa. He's helped me out with things in the past and has gone above and beyond. So I'm not an anti-Costa person. I'm just saying that she really worked hard to win her seat.
State House is a very hard race to win, and I've been involved in many State House races. The only way you win State House is one of three ways. You either spend an absolute fortune, that's ridiculous. You either knock on like over 10,000 doors, or some kind of combination of the two. Mm-hmm. And she didn't spend much money, so she did like very hard labor to do it. And you're right, you have to absolutely credit her for working as hard as she did. And maybe Dom Costa, didn't try as hard as he could have. I don't know.
I think he probably, in my opinion, just kind of took it for granted because he's such a powerful force. And I'm not saying there's a negative about him. I mean, if you've been that successful for so long,
you're just used to it.
Why wouldn't you expect to win? Especially if somebody who's so young and so green, inexperienced.
So I don't know this to be true, okay? But I've talked to people about this specific race. And I'm told that Dom Costa got the same number of votes he always gets. Okay. And that we were talking about, did Donald Trump do us a favor by bringing all these like new voters? Mm-hmm. This person who analyzed the race told me that no, all these new voters they never even talked to or accounted for before they came into the race. Right. And they're the ones that put her over the top.
Sure. Yeah, and it's like all the voters that never voted and wanted to flip the status quo and voted for Trump. I mean, we have this dynamic on both sides. Like, everybody wants to change the system. And so dissent is democracy in a lot of ways,
So, Sean, did Sarah do us a favor then?
By being in the race?
Yeah. Generate by getting more people to vote, whatever. Same question as Trump at the opening of the show.
I don't know.
I think so. People care.
Yeah.
Here's.
I hate Trump. I said he did us a favor.
No, it's okay. Politics is very tricky, and being a good political leader is very difficult. The Costas, and I'm talking about the family as a whole, they're really good for this region. Because there's only so much like in tax dollars that the Commonwealth has, okay? And you have very powerful interests in Philadelphia and other parts of the state who want that tax money desperately. The Costas are very nice, very reasonable people, but they also are genuine in that they really look out for their local communities, and they do try to claw back as much tax dollars as possible to benefit their local communities. So while I'm happy that more people are in the system and are paying attention, I agree with that 100%. I don't believe that this woman is going to be as effective as state representative for her local community that Dom Costa has, because when she gets to Harrisburg, she's not going to know how to get that money.
Yeah, but aren't we tired of that? I mean, that's how Jim Casoria stuck in office for so long. He did nothing. Now, Dom does do stuff. I'm not going to say he's a Jim Casoria. Dom has done a lot of things and pushed through a lot of legislation, but is that what we want out of our state representatives? Are they going to give me the goods, or do we want somebody who's going to push through legislation? And maybe she'll be an advocate for pushing through legislation.
Do we want someone who fails pushing through good legislation or succeeds in pushing through half-assed legislation? That kind of seems like the sad reality.
And I'm not saying that Dom Costa
with.
puts through half-assed either, but I get your point, yeah.
But imperfect maybe is a more fair word.
There are very few state representatives that can actually do stuff, okay? Like Turzai can do stuff. Turzai can make some phone calls and things happen.
So why does he do stuff and she doesn't do stuff?
He of the House, and
he had to start somewhere, right? I mean,
that's more what I mean. Is like, what is she lacking that other people have? Is it the Old Boys Network? Because that's what it sounds like, and it sounds like this is what the response is to that, right?
You call it an old boys network. I call it like a
functional democracy.
Well, I call it a political network.
Sure, okay? Yeah. And I just mean that as her as a sort of a representative of this sort of shift.
Okay, there's a problem in his community. Dom can call up his family and say, look, we got this major problem here. There's an infrastructure or whatever. Let's team up and build legislation together, okay? And then lobby, moderate Republicans and try to get something done here. This lady, I don't know her. I'm not knocking her. And actually, I respect her for winning a really hard race. I don't think she has the experience or the connections to do.
So she doesn't come from a political family.
Well, Turzai doesn't either.
So the family part that you're referencing is sort of substitutable with any sort of political connection.
Let me hit it from this angle. Like, I'm really excited that she's done what she's done, but at the same time, I don't see claiming socialism as like, I'm going to be uncomfortable letting her go too much further with her agenda.
But if you talk to these people,
I like it as a revolutionary
would she even be
thing.
able to in Pennsylvania? I mean,
so
it's
that's
all
what we're saying,
to be seen.
She wouldn't. Oh wait, did you say she won't be able to?
Well, I don't know how far she'll be able to take socialism, but what I'm arguing is like this weird like dynasty of.
Maybe she can just become part of the old boys network and ditch socialism, and then again we're back to that kind of.
No, I'm not proposing that at all. I'm saying that maybe she builds her own network.
Well, also Democratic
and gets
socialists
connections who
are
can
not,
make differences.
Right.
And yes, they're not socialists.
They're not socialists.
In the true
What are the
sense,
differences?
right?
What's the difference anyway?
But I haven't. But so in this Commonwealth, okay, I haven't seen the socialists. Have they?
They're not socialists.
Who
They're
are?
the Democratic socialists are not true socialists. That's a big thing. That they terrible branding. Let's be honest.
For sure.
Well, really good. I'll let you finish.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Depending
I
on
mean,
your audience.
They're certainly far left, but they're not true socialists. They believe in certain policies that are much closer to socialism, but it's a little bit
It's
different.
not fundamentally changing the system of government. It's sort of reprioritizing goals.
It seems like more like wasn't Bernie sick? And yeah, he was sick, and let's kind of follow that momentum. That's
sick isn't cool.
Okay.
Like the new kind
I was
of
like,
sick.
he's old. Is he?
Yeah,
what?
I'm trying to
Is
make it very baseline,
Yeah, I mean,
loved Bernie. And
maybe.
Real
we're calling
quick
ourselves
update. Real quick update here. According to CNN, that's the source I'm using because I've got it on the computer. It is split in the House right now, 125-125. The Democrats in the Senate are down 38-49. They're down by a little over 10 votes. And in Pennsylvania, we'll get back to you right after the break. We're going to take a quick break, give everyone a little bit of breather. I got as my friend Randy, my co-host of the Culture Cruise, says, I've got a little bit too much blood in my alcohol system. So we're going to refresh. We'll be back right after this on the River's Edge.
Come on, go! It's green! Come on! Go!
God damn it, Brian. You need to calm down with the road
I'm sick
rage.
of these people, these assholes.
The road rage, man. You gotta calm down on the road rage.
Well, I want to get to where we're going. We have a lot of great stuff coming up. We're going to Falling Water,
Bicycle Heaven,
the Mattress Factory,
Knob,
Trundle Manor. All right, which way do I go? Which way do I go? Come on,
right,
come on.
Right.
Too late now.
Right, come on.
Well, too late now. I gotta keep going. I'm not gonna sit here like some asshole.
Oh, come on, man.
All right, you're listening to the Culture Cruise. You can find us at riversedgepgh.com.
Your local Pittsburgh area museum podcast.
Yes, riversedgepgh.com, and come take a ride with us.
All right, CNN is calling the race for the Republicans in the U.S. Senate as retaining the Senate, their majority in the Senate. I'm here with Courtney Francis, Sam Leonard, and Sean Logue here in the Mr. Smalls Theater on the River's Edge Radio Network at riversedgepgh.com. Don't forget you can ask your Alexa to play the River's Edge station on TuneIn and listen to local music right there. And every Friday morning at 10 a.m. on the River's Edge from the overly analytical mind of Matt Geica, it's Geik's Got Game. Matt orders up a dose of his sports talk his way, including the nitty-gritty details of games and plays, in addition to a big picture perspective on how sports fits into real life. If the latest hot take doesn't just satisfy, if your sports fan palate is more than refined, belly up to Geik's Got Game every Friday at 10 a.m. right here at riversedgepgh.com. Also, Lindsey Williams is still in the lead, but it is narrowing. She has 44,200 plus votes to Jeremy Schaefer's 40,400 plus votes. So a nail-biter going on right here in the 38th Senatorial District. Is there a race that you're interested in that you need an update on? Please let us know. The number's 412-4072-PGH. It's 412-407-2744. You can text us, message me on Twitter at RiverTalkPGH, or hit us up in the Facebook Live chat on Facebook at River's Edge PGH. I'm Brian Crawford, your host, here with this great panel, and we are here to talk about the election between Connor Lamb and Keith Rothfuss. It's one of those situations where they've removed the district, and you have two incumbents from two different districts now in a new district that is an old district that's reformatted, going head-to-head in a race. And let's talk a little bit about gerrymandering. I'm interested to see what happens. Right now, the courts have decided that extreme gerrymandering is not okay. But we have a new court. There's 2 new Supreme Court justices. Things could change in the future.
They shot down an appeal just recently for the PA. The PA Republicans appealed these maps, and the Supreme Court refused to hear it.
When you say recently, like 3-4 months, you mean?
Last like 2 months,
Okay.
Maybe even last month.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really? Is that
I'm
soon?
behind on that. Then
I was following the situation. Yes.
So I hate. This is probably helpful for listeners as well. Can you catch us up a little bit?
So, long story short, the PA Constitution says that I believe it's the House gets to draw the maps.
Yes.
Okay.
Which makes me ponder the question, if you don't mind me interjecting real quick. Why does the U.S. Supreme Court have any... I guess because there's U.S. offices at stake, but if it's a Pennsylvania state constitution issue, why would it even go to the Supreme Court of the United States?
Well, that's why the feds have rejected it.
Okay.
And so they've let it be up to our PA Supreme Court. What I find it crazy is that basically the way it worked was Republicans drew a map, Democrats drew a map. Okay. The Supreme Court said we don't like either one of your maps, and they went even farther to the left, and drew their own map. And the Constitution doesn't say the Supreme Court draws the map; it says the House draws the map.
But yeah, it's a weird situation because how do you overturn that at the Supreme Court? Do you think there's an issue with the way we run our Supreme Court, where and I kind of have an issue with it, where it's a voter-based initiative versus on a federal level, where it's it's an appointment from the president, it goes through the Senate. It seems like our Supreme Court is so political.
Our Supreme Court might, next to West Virginia, which just lost their Supreme Court, might be the
What
most...
do you mean they lost their Supreme Court?
You didn't hear the story?
No, I didn't hear the story.
So, long story short, in West Virginia they elect Supreme Court justices. Some guy gets elected, and he literally wrote the book on corruption. Like, literally, the book in West Virginia on political corruption. This guy wrote it.
Which is the best.
He engaged in it, you mean?
No. He wrote literally this is corruption.
He wrote Republic Lost
Yeah.
for the state of West Virginia.
He wrote the textbook on prosecuting political corruption in West Virginia, the real book.
He's a prosecutor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
He actually wrote a book.
He actually wrote the book.
Okay.
Well, guess what? He was corrupt, and he spent
That protests too much, methinks.
Yes, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on remodeling his office with marble floor. He brought
Nice, good move, classy.
He brought like these historical like oak desks from the Supreme Court into his house. Like he took them, he moved them from the Western Supreme Court to his house.
Oh, that's chump change. You had what's
That's
her
good
name?
taste.
What's her name? Geraldine Jones down at Cal U spending $30,000 on drapes and $1 million renovation on her private apartment to attract the the best choice for president of the university for a job that she ended up getting. But go ahead.
It was a beautiful apartment, Brian.
It was. I paid for it. You paid for it. But go ahead.
But she's a very nice lady, by the way. But
Geraldine Jones.
she is.
Maybe she can get back some of that money that she swindled from the state.
Every time we talk shit, Sean goes, "Well, I did donate to him." Well, she comes
Sean,
over for dinner.
You're an alumni.
I'm on the council of trustees of California.
Yeah, I like Cal U. I just think that in a year that you fire 30 teachers and raise tuition, you shouldn't spend $30,000 on drapery.
It's bad optics.
That aside,
Tell us this good story.
But the Supreme Court, so literally, this guy got prosecuted, and he's now convicted of a felony, and then the West Virginia legislature impeached other justices. So I think on the ballot today were like 3 open spots in West Virginia. But you're right, our Supreme Court is very politicized. I don't believe in the appointment process for Supreme Court justices. I trust the people, and as crazy and corrupt as Philadelphia is, I still trust the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to elect the best possible Supreme Court candidates. And I don't believe in the appointment process. I'd rather have an election and let the voters decide.
Oh, really? See, I like a little bit of a separation between the voters at some point, because then I feel like you almost get into a mob rule with direct democracy, if that makes sense. So I think the voters should have some sort of say. Mm-hmm. But kind of like in Parliament, where you don't elect your prime minister, but you elect the members of Parliament, your MPs, and then they vote on the prime minister. So
the
really,
electoral college, that works very well.
Yeah, so there's still actually, I think the electoral college works very well.
Yeah,
I'm a big advocate for the electoral college.
Well, that's a different conversation, but that's the mitigating.
I'm with the founding
checks
fathers
and
on
balances.
issues, man. And I hate to say this, especially publicly, but I believe in political elitism. I always say I consider myself politically informed, and in a perfect world, I wouldn't be allowed to contribute to the decision-making process of how this world works because I still don't know enough. You know what I mean?
You're him. He's an elitist. I'm a common guy. I'm with you. I think you should have a voice.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, though, like I think
it was a good check to have the Supreme Court. You know, we elect all types of things. It's nice to have someone.
But technically, we do have a voice in the Supreme Court, and that's kind of my point. Is we vote on our senators, who then approve the nomination that the president brings down, and he's elected too. But
that old republic, though, it doesn't. We don't quite get through. We don't really have the effect we were designed. I don't know if it was even designed. I don't think we were designed really to have an effect on the Supreme Court.
I don't
Did they
think
really
anyone knew at the point of designing what the hell was going to happen.
You vote for a guy who's going to ride his horse to Philadelphia, the capital, and elect approve a Supreme Court justice.
That's always an argument I've made to show how smart our founding fathers were.
So smart.
They were so smart so they made a mistake. They put the capital in Philadelphia. They were smart enough to know to leave, and they moved the hell out.
Yeah.
Genius, right? If anything shows how smart our founding fathers were, I think that right there takes the cake.
I'm not saying they weren't smart, but I'm saying they weren't clairvoyant. And if we're citing their every move for everything we're doing hundreds of years later, I think that's a little bit misguided.
Corruption follows the Capitol is the issue. Like I said, I've been spending time in D.C. Listen to me. Come 5 o'clock, I turn into a private investigator. I go to the building that says Raytheon. I wait for a fat guy in a suit to walk out. I follow him to his steakhouse. I buy him 1 drink. He buys me 10 in return. Wherever you put the Capitol, there's going to be a surplus of corrupt savages who are throwing cash around, cheating, lying, stealing. You can't blame Philly for that.
Can I agree with you, Courtney, in a way? Can I agree with you by disagreeing with you?
No.
No?
What happens if I say no to that?
Then I don't know. I won't say my point.
No. No, absolutely.
Okay. So here's the thing. Like, I agree with you that the founding fathers didn't foresee everything coming. But that's why they created an amendment process. So they did foresee the fact that they couldn't foresee everything, but that's why they designed a program to edit and update the Constitution.
Absolutely. And I'm not disagreeing with that point either, but referencing them as like the end-all be-all of ideologies for infinity is
No, I agree, but I feel like
they had a good handle on what they were setting up.
But I think they were smart in the sense that they direct democracy as mob rule, and that's why I disagree with you, Sean, when it comes to the Supreme Court. I feel like a republic with democratic leanings is what our program really is. Yeah. It's truly a republic. It's not a democracy. Mm-hmm. But there's that democratic element. So the people have
is the adjective.
Yeah, and people are part of every single process in our government. They have some influence. Even before the Senate was a direct democracy, you still voted on your state employees, which then appointed your senators. So people still had their fingers. The common person still had their finger in every part of the process.
But that's
let me rephrase that. The common person who was a wealthy land-owning white guy, they had their hands in every part of the process.
Sure.
But it still had that little bit of a separation where you couldn't have these radical changes. I think that's part of the problem now is like even with the Senate, I would almost rather it be elected through our state legislatures because now you have these radical changes. Like what if the Senate changed tonight? I mean, some people would be cheering. But I think you need some level of consistency outside of just the generic bureaucracy, and I feel like that's what taking that little bit of a step back from a direct democracy allows.
There are built-in like safeguards, because you can only I want to say it's like a third of the Senate.
You can only flip so many legislators in one election.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I still feel like if you're electing people that are then appointing people, you're just, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it's close enough that I don't trust people to not appoint their cronies. So that argument sort of.
Well, sometimes they don't. You're right. I'm not arguing. I mean, I'm bringing up some interesting.
Depending on who they are, right?
Well, sometimes you'll vote for you'll appoint somebody who's not your crony. There have been instances in U.S. history where presidents have appointed their political rivals to the Supreme Court to get them out of the running for president.
Or something else.
That's
and that's not the optimal use of that system either, right?
That's
and I don't know, how do you get a system that's just and doesn't have people involved?
Well, I don't think you ever will with people involved, but I think that's why I think having these separating layers and making it as convoluted, like people complain about how complex our government is, but I feel like that's the reason why our democracy has survived, whereas you see a lot of these countries, especially in South America, and other places in the world where dictators are able to come in. What is it? In some of the Eastern European countries right now, they're going in and the executive is going in and throwing out the courts and putting in his own court. Like that can't happen here in the United States.
We've lasted for a long time, and
for a democracy, yes.
Oh
absolutely.
my God, a great long time. But all good things must come to an end as we near the end of our broadcast. Well, they always have. They always have. They don't necessarily have to, but they always have. And that's just what I'd like to. Those are my parting words. Is that if you think the American empire has I'm shorting it. Let's just say that I'm shorting that stock. So it's come to the end. We've elected Donald Trump. The economy's trash. People hate each other politically. Everyone's hypercharged. Voter turnout's at an all-time high. As is hatred. This is going nowhere good.
I'm looking at the election results. And Sarah Inalmorado has 100% of the vote with 18,600 plus. But that doesn't factor in any of the write-ins. And as I was saying, I wish we had the money. I wish we had the money to send people out like River's Edge staff at all the election places to see how many write-ins are coming in for Dom Costa, because I think that would be really fascinating.
I don't know why this is so hard. I mean, all of us can agree to disagree on a lot of stuff, but why is this part of it so hard?
What do you mean?
It's
Which part?
Voting and understanding where people stand, and all of this is so disconnected that it's like.
Well, it's easy with the write-ins. It's just you just have to have people to actually look at it, because the write-ins get processed much later.
But it's going to take weeks and all.
Well, that's because it's a write-in campaign. It's not so if it wasn't a write-in campaign, if he was as a Republican, it would just instantly you click your button and it goes.
I know.
But the thing is with the write-in, they have to look and make sure that it's
everything
the right
is spelled
name.
Exactly the same according to the Bible.
Yeah.
Right.
To talk about Mike Torzai, unfortunately, he is in the lead.
Barf.
Metcalf?
54,000. I'll get to Metcalf here in a minute. He's up at 54%.
Thank you, King.
To 45% against Emily Skopov.
Damn.
I
mean, the guy's bad, man. Talking about optics, dude. I don't even... Listen, I hate to say this. Politics? I don't even get involved in his politics. Optically, the guy has to go. He is the last bastion of the KKK.
What?
Come on, man. Oh,
he's
no,
talking about Metcalf.
Yeah, I thought you were saying Metcalf.
Oh, no, I'm talking about Mike Torzai. Torzai's at it.
Torzai's up 55-45.
So I have no idea what so Daryl Metcalf has said some really horrible things.
He's
very
also been
homophobic.
supported by some very horrible people.
Yeah, but Mike Torzai is going to say I've never heard anything like that about Mike Torzai. Mike Torzai just wants to sell our water off to a private company so they can dictate who's worth having water and who's not. George Dunbar's winning against Douglas Hunt, up 63% to 36%. And I'm looking for Daryl Metcalf. I'm not seeing him yet.
It's been oddly like a not really covered race, as much as people hate him.
As much as attention that he garnered leading up to
people love him, actually. People love him or
people love Metcalf because there was actually...
Talk Metcalf to us, Sean.
So I don't know Metcalf. I've never met him. And I've never had any dealings with the man.
You said people love him.
They do. There was an organized
movement. Don't touch him.
There was an organized movement. Yeah. There was an organized movement amongst Republicans to get rid of him because
he's psycho.
Well, they felt that he wasn't friendly to business.
Anyone?
He's a bigot?
Local business.
Why is that?
Remember, I talked earlier about I think it's the job of a state rep to get as much state money as possible for infrastructure or whatever else for your district. Metcalf
is homophobic.
Good. Metcalf is against all of that. I mean, he's
against everything except Metcalf.
He's against everything but whatever you consider his principles to be. So there were Republicans
racism.
There were Republicans that try to get rid of him.
Homophobia.
No, it's really not racism. I mean, I'm sure that's part of it, and I want to hear Sean talk. But it's more the homophobia.
No, but they tried to get rid of him, and they failed miserably. And in fact, he then got his daughter to run for council or something up there. And like I said, he's been successful in every race, and even attacks on his like political family, for lack of a better term. Like he's been successful there as well. So he's got a core group of constituents up there, and he's just not going anywhere.
Wow. The race between Jeremy Schaefer and Lindsey Williams is neck and neck.
Damn.
So Lindsey Williams right now is in the lead with 58,718 votes.
Thank God I got big cash on Williams tonight.
Jeremy Schaefer is right behind her with 58,101 votes.
You know, no discredit to Schaefer. He's a great candidate. This had nothing to do with politics. This is just the gambling addict gene that I was born with. I went with Williams, and but it's karma that he didn't call into the show, and now he's slightly behind.
Yeah.
If you don't call River's Edge, this is what happens to you. This is a warning to everyone else. Connor Lamb showed up.
He did
Schaefer.
show up, and he's
won.
kicking ass.
Schaefer, what? You're a better Paul? I don't want to criticize the guy.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's correlation, causation.
Can we talk about Schaefer for a minute and maybe throw some shade? He's a Ross Township commissioner, and he went after Lindsey Williams, and they claimed that it didn't have... So they claimed that their campaign did not come out with these yard signs. I don't know if you've seen them.
I know
or
the
any
story.
of you've seen them.
They did. They did.
Well, they had them in the campaign office. So whether they officially paid for them,
they
certainly
the
weren't.
Same way they were dropped off everywhere else.
Schaefer,
They
No, at the same time.
Let me say what they are before we debate it. They were campaign signs that said that she's a socialist.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say. I mean, she wouldn't so vehemently oppose that title. It's not like he. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just he just kind of. To her supporters, that's not an insult. To her opponents, it is. So while what he did was shady and not cool, it's kind of like...
Well, I almost wonder if that is why he's losing, because I'll be honest, he had a much better campaign than she did. Like, I saw his name everywhere. I saw his signs everywhere.
Well, let's not count our chickens before they hatch. Let's see how it comes out. Schaefer,
yeah, because it's very neck and neck, but I feel like he probably would have won handedly if it wasn't for... those tags.
The yard signs.
Confusing.
I've never met Schaefer. I've heard wonderful things about him, but I've never.
I think he's a nice guy. I mean, I've
never
talked
met
to
him.
I've talked to him. I think he's a nice guy. I just think that kind of speaks to that culture we're talking about with Wagner, where he's going on and like, oh, I'm going to stomp on him with golf cleats. It almost seems immature. I'm going to pay for signs to point the finger and call her a name.
Well, I disagree with that tactic only because I don't know if you ever followed Guy Reschenthaler. Mm-hmm. Okay, Guy runs the best campaign. Why? Because you get mailer after mailer after mailer telling you that he's a veteran, that he prosecuted the butcher of Fallujah, that he was a JAG officer. And
I thought you were going to say JAG officer.
Yes, that was.
And as annoying as mailers are, you can't get too annoyed by his mailers because he's not attacking anybody. He's just telling you, I'm a veteran and I'm the real deal. And it's really hard. How do you campaign against that?
Yeah.
Okay. Schaefer, I think, missed a golden opportunity. If he's got all this money, which he does, why put up signs with your opponent's name on it?
You're giving her free publicity.
You're giving her free publicity. It's the same. I've seen this happen like a multitude of times when Raja ran against Matt Smith for state senate a while back. Raja ran like millions of dollars in negative ads against Matt Smith. Maybe not that much, but $1 million. We'll say that.
He had a lot of money, Rob.
Yeah, a lot of money. And Matt Smith cleaned his clock. Why? Because Matt Smith got all kinds of name ID that he didn't previously have.
Yeah.
So the worst thing that Schaefer did was that. And then the second thing is that Schaefer beat out a very politically connected Republican in the primary. And, sometimes your chickens come home to roost. I hope Schaefer pulls it out tonight, but we shall see.
I don't really know. I don't know. I've talked to Schaefer, but I don't really know him. I'm not really sure. Part of me, thinks he could be. Honestly, the part of his campaign that really made me take a second guess, because I was more in his camp, to be honest, until I started seeing those signs, and I thought, man, is this what you are? It just seems so childish to me. I'm like, are you going to be childish when you're in office?
Well, so I there's an art to all of this, and whoever ran his campaign, I disagree with immensely. Mm-hmm. He could have done all of that on social media and gotten the word out, and he did. Instead, he did the signs.
I think the signs as an isolated communication device does not work.
I agree.
If you
100%.
put that in the context of why and how someone might be a socialist, then that's a very different story than just putting this message here and letting people interpret it.
So it almost
That's
looks
just
like he's
ridiculous.
bullying her. That's what it looks like. You know what
Sure,
I mean? It comes
or
across as
it's
he's
either
bullying.
he's bullying her or the sign is promoting her if you don't know what's going on.
Also,
you know?
just when you get exposed is not claiming the signs and then they're discovered in your campaign office. You just
Yeah.
look like you got
Yeah,
caught.
that's dumb.
You're looking stupid. And
Yeah.
so no matter how you feel about it politically, you go, oh, man, you fucked up.
You know what happens? People sometimes are too smart for their own good, and they overthink things, and maybe you get what we have right now.
Yeah, Connor Lamb up 155,000 plus to 115,000 to Keith Rothfuss. I just feel so confident that Connor is going to win this election.
It's
I
been
want to
called.
call. It has been called. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm feeling very confident. The House is still tied, 146, 146.
So listen, there's something to be said, speaking of Connor Lamb, no matter how you feel, Sean, politically about a guy, what you want in local politics is someone who can stick around and make an impact in the bigger scheme of things. Love them, hate them. It doesn't always come down to, the issues don't always come down to local politics. Sometimes all you want is someone who's been there 30 years and now they can really move their weight around, right? So, and I say that because, like you said, Connor Lamb's a genius campaigner, genius politician. He's young. He's got that it. Is it a little fake? I don't know. It seems like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's a little plastic.
It's always got to be strategic.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so if I lived in Johnstown, I would have voted for Murtha no matter what. Because Murtha brought back so much federal money to Johnstown. I mean, he really helped that community. Even though
love
I'm
him there.
Republican, I'd still vote for Murtha no matter what. Connor Lamb, I don't know. I have my personal opinions about Connor Lamb, and they're not good. Okay. But I do acknowledge the genius of his campaign. And here's the thing. When you're running for office, you only get like a quick soundbite or two.
Yeah.
And when Connor Lamb's soundbites are, I'm 100% pro-union, and I won't take your Social Security check away, how do you campaign against
That's
those
the
things?
same as I'm going to bring coal back. I'm going to bring steel back, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean it just in the
good
way
politics.
of tugging emotional heartstrings
So
and
we're
nostalgia and yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap up. I want to give a quick update on who all is in, what's been called so far. This is according to CNN, and then we'll do a quick wrap up here. So right now, Scanlon, I think I'm saying that right, is up on Kim. Called that race is called in PA House 5. Fitzpatrick over Wallace in PA 1 for the House. Houlihan over McCauley in PA 6, Wild over their opponent in PA 7, and then Cartwright over Crin, Perry over Scott, Reschenthaler over his opponent, and let's see, we've got Kelly ahead in 16, Lamb over Rothfuss, that's been called 56.4% in, and that's it for PA in the House. And we'll get to more PA here in a bit. I'm going to call it for Bob Casey. He's up over 56%, over 90% returns in.
Lock it up. Brian called it.
Over Lou Barletta. Same with Tom Wolfe over Scott Wagner. Much bigger margin there, 58% to 40%. And again, with over 90+% in the official total here. Let's see if it says here 93.45% reporting. So I don't see with the rest of that going much of a chance. So I'm interested to see what Nate Nolf does. So I'm going to look that up real quick as well. Any race that you guys are interested in?
So I'm happy to report my personal friends in Washington County won. Cameron Bartolotta, the state senator from Washington County, who I'm very close with, she won a big race tonight. So we're very happy and thankful about that. I'm hoping that Natalie Mahalik wins. She was up. She's running for the state house seat in Upper St. Clair and Bethel Park. There are a bunch of other ones, but those are the two that I was watching. Have you seen the results for Valerie Gatos in Moon Township?
No, I haven't.
Okay, she's running for state house against a woman named Knoll. Moon Township, Swickley, and she's a friend of mine and just a wonderful person. So.
I've got no races I want to follow. I just want to say thanks for having us, Brian. This was an awesome show. I thought I'll rewatch this. I loved Sean's. First of all, you carried the show perfectly. We only got so many results by 11 p.m., but Sean God.
I think we've got the big ones in.
I disagree with this guy on so many issues, but boy, he's fun to listen to. I told him during a break he should be on Fox News, man. I'm a new
He's
fan.
great. I always enjoy having him on.
And Courtney was a great antithesis. That's the wrong word, but you get my point, right? She was a good counterpoint to him.
Counterpoint.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been fun, and thanks for having me.
So CNN, this is interesting. CNN must be looking at the individual percentages in the different districts. They've called the House for the Democrats, but the Republicans actually have more seats called. So the Republicans are up 152 to 151, but CNN has called it for the Democrats. So they must be looking at the percentages in the races.
We're still going to. It's not over yet.
It's not over yet. No,
Right,
I think it's a little premature on CNN's part.
Agreed.
And even on the Senate, where they called it for the Republicans, they have it 50-40.
I trust
but
no one. I'm just gonna say that about things. I will call nothing ever.
I'll be honest, like I know it sounds like lame, and people may disagree with me, but the BBC, man, they do a great job when it comes to their coverage, and they do a much better job covering American news than any of our.
They do a better job covering American news than British news.
Yeah,
Sure.
So
That's fair.
David Cross made that point 20 years ago. It sucks I have to go to BBC to find out about my local politics. It's true.
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
crazy. Well, I want to thank all you guys for coming in. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sean, and thank you to Jeff Betten, who made an appearance here in studio as our only guest, the only one that came through. Everybody else bailed on us. So, but
thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you.
It's been a lot of fun. We'll get the River's Edge back up to lead us out here in tonight.
Play Mark Perlin's Pittsburgh Water at some point tonight.
I don't have that. I don't have the rights to that song.
Oh,
but we
damn.
do have Big Atlantic, and they're playing right now with
Nice.
No One Cares, because it really doesn't matter. We're screwed either way, right? For Sam Leonard, for Courtney Francis, for Sean Logue, I'm Brian Crawford. This has been Election Night coverage, where hopefully you got something out of this. I'm Brian Crawford. I'll be back Friday night, 7 p.m. right here with Jay Cooper with some more election results and, of course, some other great things going on here in the city. This is the River's Edge Radio Network, Pittsburgh's voice for local music. And maybe I'll end with a plug. Why not? Hungry for science? Have a snack. Get the latest science headlines from Carnegie Science Center's Science News and Cues podcast. Find out what's new in science, explore cool science topics, and submit your own burning science questions. Listen to Snack on the River's Edge Wednesday at 10 a.m. For all of these great folks, I'm Brian Crawford. Thank you so much for joining us for maybe the most exciting midterm election that we'll ever get the opportunity to experience. I'll see you Friday, 7 p.m. Don't forget, Pittsburgh News, Pittsburgh Local News, Sam Leonard. Listen to his show. If you
At
need...
Sir_SL, Twitter, Instagram, follow it up. It's a nice take on local news if you like it.
Exactly. I'm Brian Crawford. This has been the River's Edge, Pittsburgh's voice for local music, right here in Millville, Pennsylvania, broadcasting from Mr. Small's Theater. Have a good night.